Okay.
The kid is that young.
Are we all set?
Yeah.
Being 7:30, I call this meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we have a pretty comprehensive agenda tonight, and first on the agenda is a visit from North Reading Reads, and if everyone remembers last year, we read Travels with Charlie, every single person in town. And this year is the Curious Incident of the Dog in the Night, and represented from North Reading Reads, Judy Seeger, the Assistant Library Director, and Vicki Yablonsky, and if you could introduce the others you have with you and just tell us about the program.
We have Bob Ward, an English teacher from the high school. We have Adrian Callahan, a friend of the library. We'd like to thank you for allowing us to come and address you tonight. I brought you gifts. It's a little program that lists several of the events and a button for everyone who's going to participate. I already have one. You're way ahead of me.
Different
Have-
color,
have
though.
two and give it to a friend.
Different color.
Thank you.
Well, I'll just start off by saying something about townwide book discussions and why we do them. They promote reading across all age groups. They promote the use of the town library, the use of the high school library, the use of the middle school library. Promotes community discussion by sharing responses to one book. And it's a new area of discussion. Instead of discussing New England weather, we can discuss a book. The book is The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. It's a great story about an autistic teenager who starts off investigating the death of a dog in the neighborhood. He goes way beyond things that he's comfortable with doing. It explores family dynamics, and it makes you think about the way you look at other people who are differently able. So it has a lot of talking points. It's readily available at the library. It's not on the shelf, but we happen to place a hold for you. And I hope you choose to participate. Some of our events are an evening book discussion on Tuesday, March 8th, a forum on Tuesday, March 22nd, a daytime book discussion on March 30th, and Vicki will mention some of the high school events, and there's going to be a middle school event. So it's going to involve a lot of people in town. And our sponsors are the North Reading High School, the Flint Memorial Library, the North Reading Book Discussion Club, and the Friends of the Library, North Reading Cooperative, and North Reading ISO. So thank you for your time. Vicki?
Just wanted to say that Bob is the chair of Ward, the chair of the English department, and the English teachers have agreed, as they did last year, to give extra credit to the students who read the book and participate in one of the discussions at the high school, like giving them a little push to read the book. And several kids have already read it, returned it to us. We have several copies in the high school library, and they said that they really enjoyed the book. It's pretty easy reading, and it's an interesting story. We're going to have several book discussions at the high school during March. All these events are taking place in March. A couple of members of the National Honor Society have agreed to organize the book discussions this year at the high school. I organized them the last time, but they're going to get some community service hours and help me out by organizing them. And they'll be held during power block at the school, during the middle of the day over the lunch periods. And again, that'll be taking place in March. I believe that Christy Showman, the Youth Services Librarian at Flint, is also arranging a book discussion. She has a young adult advisory board that has some students from the middle school and I believe also the high school who advise her on young adult issues at the library. And they're going to be holding a book discussion of their advisory board also in March. And we put a notice out that went out in the high school newsletter today to parents. We had one notice out in the earlier parent newsletter just that this was happening, but we put out a notice asking parents to possibly get involved and maybe organize a book discussion of their own among high school parents and maybe middle school parents if they're interested. These book discussions don't have to be organized. They don't have to be held at the library. Anybody can have a book discussion around this book, and that's what we hope would happen anywhere that people meet, but we offer the library if people are interested in having a place to host it. If they contact us, we'd be happy to have it at the library. But thank you for inviting us here. Last year, a year and a half ago, we gave you copies of the book because we had a lot of extra copies of Trials with Charlie floating around. It was an older book and readily available in paperback. We don't have a lot of extra copies this year, so we can't give them out to you, but as Judy said, they are available at the library. You can get them on Angel Library Mode. And the Andover Bookstore will also give you a 10% discount if you choose to buy it from them. The paperback is $12, so you get a 10% discount. If when you go there, you mention it's for North Reading Reads. Thank you.
Great. No, just a little commercial. I read the book, and I thought it was incredibly interesting. It was very easy to read. So a quick, if anyone thinks they're going to get into something that's overwhelming to them or time-wise, probably if you sat down, you could read it in a couple of hours, I would say.
Yeah.
And it was a fresh story that I hadn't read before and very touching. And I really enjoyed the book very much. So I hope everyone reads it.
It's won some awards, and it's also, I believe, still on the paperback bestseller list in the Globe and has been for quite a few weeks.
So, thank you, and I encourage everyone to participate. Keep the book discussion dates in mind and watch the transcript, so we can have lots of participation.
Can I borrow a copy?
Oh, I sense a photo opportunity.
Are there already Cliff Notes? Just having a flashback to my days in school.
That's Nana White.
No, I'm good. Jerry Venezia was hoping that he wanted to know why the dog was upside down.
Did it look like this?
That's the school committee. Great, thanks.
Try and
Thank
get
you all.
home early.
Thank you.
I thought you were going to say no rush.
There's a lot of.
Good night, thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda, we have minutes. 3 regular session and 2 executive sessions. So I will entertain motions. Mr. Messeri, yeah?
Madam Chairman, I move to approve the January 10, 2005 regular session minutes as written.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the January 10th regular session minutes. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Unanimous? Mr. Messeri?
Madam Chairman, I move to approve the January 18, 2005 regular session minutes as written.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion regarding the January 18th minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Unanimous? Mr. Messeri?
Madam Chairman, I move to approve the January 18, 2005 executive session minutes as written.
Second.
A motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Unanimous? Mr. Messeri?
Madam Chairman, I move to approve the January 24, 2005 regular session minutes as written.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion regarding the January 24th regular session minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, unanimous. And last but not least,
Madam Chairman, I move to approve the January 24, 2005 executive session minutes as written.
Second.
a motion and a second. Is there any discussion regarding the January 24th executive session minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? None, unanimous. Correspondence. Anyone seeking correspondence, please send your yellow sheet.
We have the folder here.
Yeah, if you just want to
I
see
just
those
want to take a
letters.
quick glance at it.
Yeah. Yeah, I did the same. Okay, so if anyone wishes correspondence, please send your yellow sheet in the direction of Mrs. Sponzo. Public comment? I don't see any. Okay, moving along, number 5 on our agenda, sorry, I'm shuffling my papers a little too much, is to declare a state of emergency in North Reading, which is not quite as serious as it might sound. This is in accordance with the governor's declaration of a state of emergency in the blizzard of some 9 days ago, and this, Mr. Hanlon has requested that we do this, which should help us, if there are federal or state monies available, get some reimbursement for our snow removal costs. Anything else on that, Mr. Younger?
Congressman Tierney has just recently is trying to get federal funds to come through for us also in this area, and so we're optimistic that maybe some may be coming forth from the federal government also.
Okay, we can only hope. I was seeing $100 bills go down the street instead of $1 bill on last weekend. Is there any discussion or questions on this matter before we have a motion? Okay. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Messeri, we'll take the motion on the state of emergency.
Madam Chairman, I move to declare a state of emergency in North Reading, Massachusetts for Saturday, January 22nd, 2005, and Sunday, January 23rd, 2005, in accordance with the Governor of Massachusetts declaration of the same.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion at all? Hearing none, all those in favor, please, I'm sorry.
I have a question. I thought it's only for 2 days. The state of emergency, only for 2 days. No, it was the good.
I would assume that's when the bulk of the snow removal costs were incurred.
Sunday and Monday, wasn't it?
The governor.
When, yeah, Romney declared it a state of emergency, I think.
Saturday and Sunday.
Was it Saturday, Sunday? Well, Monday was,
Monday for eastern part of Massachusetts.
Yeah, the snow removal began Saturday. Is there any harm in amending the motion to declare it for the Monday too, to cover ourselves in case
No, we could cover,
funds are available?
we could cover Monday also. I don't think that would be an issue.
I think so.
Okay,
If I think it was stretching,
well,
it's okay.
that's okay, so,
all they can say is no.
that's all right. So,
But the motion reflect the.
yeah, would to amend, remove your second, we'll amend the motion?
Yes, consider that under rereading.
Yes.
Yeah, main motion would be.
Madam Chairman, I move to declare a state of emergency in North Reading, Massachusetts for Saturday, January 22nd, 2005, Sunday, January 23rd, 2005, and Monday, January 24th, 2005, in accordance with the Governor of Massachusetts declaration of the same.
Second again.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Thank you for your input, Mr. Harris. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Unanimous? Okay. Moving along to number 6 on our agenda. Deja vu all over again. We're going to discuss the civil service article for our April town meeting. We have before us 2 separate articles, 2 separate drafts of articles for our review as part of this discussion. One to remove the fire chief's position from civil service, and one to remove the police chief's position from civil service. We also have a map that shows Massachusetts towns within civil service. And if I counted right and didn't double count any of the colors here, just as a review, there are 351 cities and towns in Massachusetts. 20 have the fire chief only in civil service. 53 have the police chief only in civil service. And 47 communities have both the fire and police chief in civil service. And the grand total then of any community having either chief or a combination of both chiefs in civil service is 120 communities, if I counted.
What was the total again for the combined vote?
47? And again, that was, I actually probably should have made a mark in each community when I counted it, but I think I got it pretty close. Okay, so I just thought that was cool. You know, you can kind of eyeball it on the map here, but I thought that was just to quantify it. So I will open it to discussion from the board, and then I'll open it if anyone in the audience is seeking recognition. And I don't see why we can't discuss both at the same time, because I think that the discussion is probably fairly applicable to both, though there may be particulars of one or the other. Is there any discussion? Mr. Vino?
I certainly will discuss it. I believe the board does know my position, and I am opposed to doing this to both police and fire. I'll be fairly brief tonight, but I will have quite a bit more to say at town meeting. I just feel it's very unfortunate that the majority of this board has taken a chance at this because of an unfortunate circumstance that did happen at the fire department. This is either the fourth or fifth time this has been brought up at town meeting. As a matter of fact, I received a phone call before I came here reminding me it was brought up approximately 10 months ago. I think it's very unfortunate. I don't see any good reason to do this. Again, as I said, I will have further comments at town meeting. I do appreciate the map, but I wish the map was in more detail. As the board can well see, there are many white cities and towns, which mean there is no civil service. But many of those do not have a full-time police or fire department. They don't have a full-time chief. So I mean, to skew this down to, if you want to start comparing numbers, there should be a comparison done with towns that are similar to North Reading. I think this is very unfair to be handing us a map like this that shows a lot of white cities and towns that I know for a fact they're on call. The state police cover many of these cities and towns in western Massachusetts. And I do disagree with some of the coloring of the map, which I'm going to actually look into, and again, I will bring that up at town meeting. I am opposed to both articles. It's unfair and it's wrong to do. And please, I advise every member of the police and fire department, get 10 people at town meeting so we can defeat this one more time. Thank you.
Mr. Callaghan?
Yeah. You know, 10 months ago, I also opposed this question. And I've changed my position some because of what's happened. 10 months ago, I spoke with many of the police and firemen, and you know, in the interest of their morale and so forth, I sided with that side of the argument that we should keep it in civil service. But what we've gone through the last couple of months, it kind of points out that I don't think that the civil service protection, we'll call it, it serves us in a time when we have a circumstance like we've just gone through. I'm going to tell you right now that I am going to support taking it out for the fire chief's position. I am not going to support taking it out for the police chief's position, and the reason being is I do think that influence, there is more circumstances for influence upon the police chief, of political interference in the way in which a department is run by, whether it be somebody gets pulled over for a ticket and people are calling to get that. I think that the job of the fire department is much more cut and dry in terms of that type of pressure. I've heard the argument about smoke detectors and going into developments and a fire chief or a deputy chief requiring something, but we have state codes that require that also. So to me, that's black and white, that you really can't get undue influence in those aspects of the job. I have seen in the last however long it's been, it seems like it's been a long time this has been going on because it keeps coming before us. But the one reason 10 months ago at town meeting that I supported keeping everything in civil service was for promotion from within. And the basic thing I've seen, or the basic feeling that at least I've interpreted from this board and from other people that are in position when it comes time to make these selections is, and I think it would be this way all the time, is we want to hire from within. That aspect is there. It's always beneficial to go with a known quantity. And in some instances, in this instance, the fact that we have to go through the civil service procedure is actually, in a way, it's a hindrance to hiring locally, or being able to fill the position in a timely manner that would probably be what's best for the town. We're in an acting position, or acting chief, acting deputy chief. We're going to have acting captains coming up. And the reason is because of civil service. And I would have the faith in the people that sit here. We all live in town. We all get to know, to different degrees, the men and women that serve in the police department and the fire department and so forth. And we know their qualities. And I think the people that are in the position of making those decisions know their qualities. And their qualities that make people attractive for those positions. And I think I don't see how it's going to hurt anybody. I really don't. And in essence, I think it's going to help. The reason I am splitting my vote, I guess, in terms of the police chief is I do think that the police situation, although we could be faced with the same type of a situation in terms of hiring, if we were to get into the same thing where the two top people in the chain of command were both to go out at the same time, or both positions became vacant at the same time. Yeah, I guess we'd be in that same situation. We'd be waiting on tests and all that we've been going through right now. But I do feel on the day-to-day operations, it's much more likely that if a fire chief has to answer or is constantly being spoken to about the way things are being run or administered by the police department in town, I think that can become that the police chief needs the protection to be able to say, back off, let me do my job. And I don't see that as much in the fire department in terms of what their job is. So with that in mind, and in order to, I think, to help expedite our ability to hire and to get quality people that we know are quality people in place as soon as possible, I think at this time that I've decided that what I believe is best is to remove the fire chief position from civil service. But we have two different warrant articles here.
Yes, we do.
But I would be voting to keep the police chief's position in civil service at this time. Thank you.
Mr. Messeri?
Yes, I'm very much against having both the police and the fire chief selected under civil service. I think it ties the town's hands and prevents them from getting the very best person for the job when the position needs to be filled. I have a serious problem with having to select someone with a test, based on a test score, to fill a management position for the town. I think there's more than just the grade in the test that should be used as a factor in hiring management of both police and fire, and therefore I will be supporting the removal of both the fire and the police chief from civil service.
Mr. O'Leary?
My position hasn't changed from several years ago. When it was first proposed, I've been advocating this for a long period of time. And when I was advocating it initially, we were not faced with any vacancies, and we were not faced with having to make a decision, which is an ideal time to really consider these things. But I think the current situation at the fire department highlights some of the pitfalls that are inherent with the civil service process in hiring a chief. We see now that the board has decided to postpone taking of the exams, or calling for an exam for an entire year. So we're going to be having provisional appointments in the fire chief, deputy fire chief, and captain's positions for up to, could be as much as 18 months, which I don't think is in the best interest of the department. I don't think it's in the best interest of the community. I don't think it's in the best interest of the management, from a management standpoint, of managing a $2 million plus operation down there. As Mr. Callaghan pointed out, this does not preclude, it was never my intention by proposing any of this, to preclude the selection of anybody from inside the department. I think it's, if anything, it would facilitate the ability of the town to do so. And if there was a need, perceived need by the administration, board, or anybody else, to go outside, the town would have the ability to go out and select the best person for the job. As Mr. Messeri pointed out, we are limited by two things. One, by test scores, which limits the number of people we can choose from, brings it to the top, one of the top three. So if you wanted to go and get the person who passed the test, who came in fourth or fifth, you'd have to have a compelling argument as to why you could go and reach down into the list that far to go get them. And if someone didn't pass the test, but was from inside the department and has proven themselves over a number of years to be certainly worthy of consideration, it precludes us from doing that. And that's inherently wrong for the career employees who are here who just didn't happen to pass a test or finish in the top three. So for those reasons, I think it's important that we provide the town of North Reading, the administration of the town, the opportunity to choose the best person in an expeditious manner to do so. So I'm in favor of taking them out of civil service.
Thank you, Mr. O'Leary. Likewise am I, and that's not a new position for me either, because I do think that we should have the flexibility to get the best person from the job, regardless of a test score. That also does not by any means preclude looking to hire from within first. In fact, that would be a necessity for me to hear that the town administrator thoroughly screened all candidates within the department, within either or both departments, before moving forward. Hopefully it would help us react more quickly, look at a variety of characteristics of the proper candidate, from management skills, administrative skills, respect among the men, the rank and file, in addition to the technical skills, or whether that person is a good test taker. So I do support this. I do understand the concerns that Mr. Callaghan brought up about the police chief, but I have to believe that when a police chief takes a stand on an ethical issue on which he has legal standing, that the town administrator and the board of selectmen would back up that chief. So in the interest of brevity, I think that covers it. I would ask, and I can check myself too on the civil service website, that we get a more accurate reflection, if this reflection, is not thorough, just.
Sure, I can provide that.
Yeah, of, which departments are called, and just to be sure to get a more accurate. I know that there is some information, some lists on the civil service website. Mr. Vino?
Yes, and I'll be very brief, because I keep hearing the word test. Well, there is also what they call an assessment center the civil service can do, which does not have a test. And the candidate is based on a number of different situations and things that take occurrence over 2 days. So if you do not want to test, you don't have to have a test. And that is another option. I don't expect that's going to change any of your minds, but if you want to throw the test out, you certainly can. And you can do what's called an assessment center. And that's done.
Just as information wise, how many communities do the assessment, because
I know
I don't
Reading is
recall
one.
we've ever done it.
No, I know Reading just got through with one a week ago, 2 weeks ago. I don't know how many do it, Steve, but it's done. It's
Joe,
done.
is
It's
that-
not uncommon.
Totally separate, or is that in conjunction with a test?
Totally separate, there's no test. So if you don't want to go on test scores, you don't have to go on test scores. You can ask civil service to run an assessment center for you. They send in a team, it generally takes 2 days, and it's very comprehensive. It's not just sitting down, looking at answering a question. They're given homework, they're given a number of things to do. And then you get a recommendation from the assessment center.
Same thing though, as far as the number of people that have to sign up for the assessment in order to have it?
That I don't know, so I don't want to try to answer that.
Okay, I mean, I don't know what the.
Yeah, I don't know that.
Everybody,
I don't know the answer to that, Steve, so I don't want to try to answer.
and what about as far as an assessment, if you wanted to go statewide as you do on a test, where you have the option of going in-house or statewide? Can people from who are on the list somewhere?
I believe you go in-house, well, I shouldn't say that. I don't know the answer. I know Reading has only gone in-house with theirs.
I have some notes on it, I didn't bring it with me
Yeah.
tonight,
But I mean, if the concern is the test,
Well, that's part of the concern, obviously.
well, that shouldn't be a concern because you don't have to do it that way. You can do what's called an assessment center. Stays within civil service and gives you another, it actually gives you 3 or 4, I'm not sure how many people are part of the board that look at
Can we
it.
find out what the details are of that? Because again, win, lose, or draw, depending upon what occurs at town meeting, you know, if these articles don't prevail, it's certainly something that I would be interested in
Yeah.
looking at, if that's an option and something available to us, because I'm not familiar with it.
It is an option,
I mean,
you know that.
obviously, we have and if that can speed up the process in relation to filling the fire chief's position, instead of waiting a year to take the test and all that sort of a thing, maybe that's an option we should be looking at immediately. And then we're talking about the possibility or probability of the police chief's position opening up in a couple of years.
Well, if the town
Because of course
administrator
your time.
could get more information on the assessment center, it was a breakdown, and I don't have my notes with me, they're on my desk, it's like 40, 40, 20, and I'm not sure if the test was part of it, you know, on different, you know, different skills and assessments. I'm not sure about your other questions about how quickly it could be called, and
No,
whether
if
it's open or closed, but I think that should these articles fail, that, you know, is certainly something that we should look at. Mr. Messeri?
I guess my question is, why wasn't this mentioned earlier?
It was mentioned.
It was,
briefly
it was.
Yeah, someone mentioned an assessment.
Yeah, it was
This is
mentioned
one of
at
the five-
our last discussion.
It was mentioned, but then no one picked up on it. I mean, is there some negative to that approach that?
I think it's a fairly new.
Can we ask maybe, you know,
I don't know how long.
Deputy Harris or anybody, does anybody have any idea as to how those work?
Assessments, Town Estonian had one a couple of years ago. You can call it Town Estonian, they did an assessment center.
They don't have civil service down there.
I'm not exactly sure if it was civil service, but they did an assessment center, and they invited a couple of lawyers to participate at the same time. There was one lawyer that I know that participated during the center that went on. I don't know whether he just evaluated it or took the exam itself.
Mr. Younger?
Just a follow-up to Deputy Chief Harris on that. If there was an assessment center in Stoneham, they did hire a chief who was outside of the department, though. Because their chief came from the town of Norton.
We can look into that, so if we can get information on the assessment center more and on the map. Mr. Kelly?
If I could, do you, I don't know if you can speak for the department or what, but I'm talking about in terms of the men. Has any opinion ever been expressed about this, about an assessment as opposed to a test?
I don't believe so. It's always been generally that we take an exam. No other avenue that I know of has ever been brought forward to the department. I've been there for 28 years. It's always been the exam, and that's what we always did. Tradition dies hard. Hate to say it that way.
No.
I think it's an option to look at should these articles fail, but you also say, well, if you're gonna have someone come in and assess the day-to-day role and reaction, isn't that what we do on an ongoing basis? And isn't that the town administrator's job and, up the ranks in the fire department to see performance over a longer period than 2 days and in a hypothetical potentially situation? I certainly am open to looking at it, but I don't know that it's better than looking at a candidate over a period of months, years.
Again, rates will be better than looking at a test score though, too.
Right,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
my
no,
feeling.
it's a lot, yeah. Mr. Conley?
If you don't want to answer it, it's fine. My question would be, the civil service part of this. What's the important part, or the important aspect? Is it the protection of civil service, or is it the protection of hiring from within? I mean, what is the major?
I can only speak for myself, I
Yeah.
can't speak for the union.
Sure.
It's a protection for the person itself. To me, it's when you go and you make a decision on a certain, like Walmart, or a place like that, it's a protection for the person when he makes a decision. You can't come back.
If you don't mind me, what type, and I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
What type of decision though, and I'm not trying to be facetious, I mean, does the fire chief make that isn't backed up by a state law? That's the part where I'm getting a disconnect here. I mean, I see it with the police chief.
There's interpretations of laws. I mean, it depends on how you interpret the law. The law is spelled out exactly, just like it is for the police department and those of us who live in the United States. The law is the law, but different people have to interpret the law. If you make a wrong interpretation, I guess you want to call it, and protecting the person by that means. You say within the department, civil service protects within the department for taking an exam. It really doesn't, because you've already talked about opening it up to a state exam. That doesn't really make it protection for the person inside the department. The protection is for the man himself when he takes on the job. I'm making making a decision that doesn't, the three guys at the board don't like, so you take the person out and, that type of decision, I guess is where I'm coming from. You have to keep 3 people happy on the board, or they'll remove the person. It kind of takes that away. It's true.
No, I do not laugh for
I
another
don't
reason.
mean to be.
I understand.
No, I'm sorry, that had nothing to do with, you. May I ask you a question?
Sure.
Have there been instances in the past where you felt pressure to change a decision, whether how
Myself.
many firefighter Harris, any other members of the department that you know about, were you required, say, when a building was being built, a certain number of smoke detectors, or an emergency exit, or some other thing within your sprinkler, that you said, you need this, and it was too expensive for whoever was building the building, and you got pressure back through the board to change that, and then you felt like, thank goodness I have the civil service protection that I can stand. Has that happened?
Personally, to me, no.
Has it happened that within the fire department?
I can't speak for the chief, but that makes sense, we'll make the decision.
Mhm.
If it did, we would have told them.
Okay.
This leaves civil service in place for every other position, except for the chief itself.
And then there's different avenues of chief, weak chief, strong chief. There's different parts of that also, once you take it out of civil service.
Mr. Young?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of things that were discussed this evening. One regarding the assessment center. I do agree with Mr. Vio. I know that the town of Reading has utilized it for the chief's position. I don't know of any other civil service communities that have utilized it. I know of communities who don't have civil service who have utilized the assessment center as a tool for them to review all candidates that they wish to consider. Also, if you went with an assessment center, that position is still protected by civil service, if I'm not mistaken. Even if it's going that avenue, it is still protected by civil service for any type of disciplinary action. They're still protected there. I do wish to state, as I've stated in the past, I do support the board going through and putting this recommendation on the warrant. It is something that, as a manager, is supportive to try to get the best candidate you can for these two high-level positions. It does not prevent me from appointing from within. In fact, my community is not civil service for both police chief and fire chief, and they've had in the past year and a half, two new chiefs, both promoted from within. So it does not prevent you from looking for the best candidate from within. In fact, it makes the best sense, is if you have qualified candidates, to look within. But there are instances, sometimes occurrences beyond our control, where it makes sense to go outside of the department. And this would allow the community and myself to have that opportunity should it so arise. But obviously, it is in our best interest to look within the department if we can for that position.
Is there any members of the fire department who seek any recognition at this time? So as far as, it's obviously there's consensus to put it on the warrant. Do we need a vote to do that? Yeah, I think we need a vote. And then what I'd like to do at this time, since we're having this discussion.
One question for you, if you're gonna take it out of civil service, are you gonna make a strong chief, weak chief? I think that probably needs to be addressed. I think there's levels in there that need to be addressed if you are gonna take it out.
In terms of the chief's responsibilities?
Is it gonna be a strong chief, weak chief? There is levels in there, I believe.
Part of the levels in, Mr. Vino, please correct me if I'm wrong, strong chief, weak chief is also the appointing authority power that they have. Currently, under the charter, the town administrator is the appointing authority. I think you may need a charter change if you're going to maybe do that, but the TA is the appointing authority, and a strong chief is an appointing authority for both positions.
So that doesn't change current status of things anyway.
See, I'm missing something here. You're saying a strong chief as appointing authority?
A strong chief, I would have to double check, but I thought a strong chief may have appointing authority regarding the personnel. Mr. Vino's.
I don't believe so.
Okay, that's why I said we'd have to double check.
Because I've known strong chiefs on the police department, and the board of selectmen was still the appointing authority. I don't believe.
What constitutes strong and weak, Joe?
Well, this is what should have been done ahead of time, and I think we should look into this
Well, it's fine.
and find
Do you
this
know?
out. I mean, well, see, this, if I may, Madam Chair, this is what I'm saying. This board is preparing to go forward, and thank you very much. As you can see, they don't have the answers. And I think you should have those answers. So I feel they should get the answers.
Mr. Kelly?
Could you provide us with the answers?
I haven't done my homework on it, should go on the debate fast. By the answer, later date, I'm sure.
Well, I think also, if I could, we're in the process of getting a study done on the department. And I think that is probably a great place for us to get recommendations as to how the department is going to be structured, and to have that vetted with the current acting chief, current deputy chief, and other members of the department, which we had already talked about planning on doing. And I think that would all be determined at that point, when we all had answers as to exactly what constitutes a strong chief and what constitutes a weak chief. I don't know what it is, and it's not my purview to decide exactly how the department is structured. It is my purview, though, to enter into this discussion. I'm going off of what I've seen in the last couple of months, and I feel that this has held us up. And I think there's safeguards in place for the men's concerns in the department, and I think there might be a better way of doing it for the town, is the way the town is concerned. And that's why I feel the vote I'm taking this evening is germane, and it is something we should move forward, and the answers to those questions will come through proper study, as opposed to us, because, I mean, the professionals in the department aren't sure what it means, so how would we know what it means? I think this will all be spelled out in due time before any decisions are made. So I think there's plenty of safeguards for that. I don't think we're going ahead blind here. I think we're going ahead very prudently, and we've taken the steps to make sure that we structure the department properly in the coming future.
Okay, why don't we have motions to place it on the warrant, and then if there's no objection, I think we can take motions whether or not to recommend tonight, since it's topical and it can be. Or do we want to wait till the public hearing?
Probably wait till the public hearing.
Okay,
then.
wait till the public
And
hearing.
we'll have some additional information to the.
All right.
Okay, the motions to recommend then will not be printed in the warrant because our public hearing is not until after printing of the warrant, which I always think is unfortunate. But, okay, then I will entertain motions to place each of these articles separately into the warrant.
Madam Chairman, I move to place an article for special legislation for removal of the fire chief's position from civil service on the warrant, the April town meeting warrant.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
4 to 1. I will entertain a motion regarding the police chief article.
Madam Chairman, I move to place an article for special legislation, removal of the police chief's position from civil service on the town meeting, April town meeting warrant.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
3 to 2. Okay. Next on the agenda is to discuss what we call the moderator's warrant article. I think everyone had information on this in their mail packet. Oh, wasn't it?
No.
Okay.
Right now.
There we go.
Oh, I'm sorry.
My understanding of this is, if this is approved, it doesn't prevent, is it 10 voters to get out?
7.
Right.
7, and request a count.
Yes, if you read chapter 39, section 15, it says if a vote so declared is immediately questioned by 7 or more voters, he
So-
shall verify it by polling the
And I
voters.
guess my view of this is that it has the potential to expedite town meeting and at the same time still provides the protections of the voters in case they feel the moderator's made a bad call.
I agree.
Or his hearing was impaired.
Right.
Not a bad call, his hearing was impaired.
Oh, I see, okay. Well, I mean, it's clear that many times a minority can make more noise at town meeting and sound louder than the majority, so.
I agree. It would seem expeditious and that, without the safeguard of 7 voters questioning the moderator's hearing, I would not, I would be concerned, but that caveat makes me comfortable regardless of whoever is standing in the moderator's shoes going forward. And I do think this would be prudent, and as in the case of our most recent town meeting, we might have gotten through with one night, and only one night of expense, not to mention the inconvenience to town volunteers and to town voters to have to come out a second night.
I think there must have been a challenge somewhere along the way when a moderator declared a unanimous vote which required 2/3, and someone questioned it, stating that a hand count was required. And, I stood up front there for a few years, 11 and a half years, 2 years down in Reading, and I used to declare things unanimous even on a 2/3 vote. And on occasion, if someone would have questioned it, I'd say, town clerk having declared that a quorum was present, it was unanimous. So at least you were covered. This is, it's more of a housekeeping issue, I think, from a protective issue. in relation to votes that are taken. So if the moderator were to declare on a voice vote something that was unanimous that required a 2/3, the unanimous consent prevails without taking a hand count. Someone must have challenged and say, state statute says a 2/3 majority by a hand count must happen. And I think that's what precipitated the move here. But in practice, and all the town meetings I've been to over the years, which was a lot of them, not just here but in other communities, unanimously was something in practice that was always in place. And I think this just kind of codifies practice. I don't think it's really going to speed up much the way a town meeting. I mean, 7 people is not very many to force a hand count or a 25 thing on a paper ballot. But I think it's more of a housekeeping issue, so that the declared unanimous actually counts. Previously, I don't think it did. I think it was challenged. But I think it's a good idea.
I was just saying, but you're saying why not?
No, it's not a way to know. So I just think it's more of a housekeeping issue, and let's codify and take care of it.
Any other comments?
Now, can I just one minute? I'm almost done.
Oh, yeah.
Because I didn't see this.
So in this motion, we're dealing with General Law 39, Section 15,
Yes.
not,
Good night.
then it refers back to North Reading general laws. I assume these are references to state law.
That's right.
So what,
All it does-
section North Reading's,
Well, that's probably what article is in the charter, article 2 or something.
but the article is blank.
Yeah, they'll just fill in, they'll just, wherever corresponds to the general bylaws, they just fill in section so-and-so, subsection. But
Yeah, I don't know that it needs to be
All right,
specifically in the motion. Mr. Vina?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Well, the one question I had jotted down even before we came in tonight, did get answered, and that is, was there a way for it to be challenged from the floor? After receiving this information, I found out that, I guess, 7 people rising can challenge and ask for a hand count. I have no problem.
Okay, well, I will entertain a motion to put this on the warrant, proper section of
Okay.
language to be inserted by the town administrator.
Madam Chairman, I move that we incorporate into the April town warrant an article to amend the code of the general bylaws covering the town moderator's right to call a 2/3 vote without a hand count.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, unanimous? Okay.
We could, I don't know if you want to do it tonight, or we could probably make a recommendation on that.
We can,
Just
until
a
we're gonna have a
guess.
public hearing. It's the board's wish to make a recommendation on it. Okay.
Move to recommend. Second.
Okay, we have a motion to recommend this article and a second. All those in favor of recommending this article so the recommendation may be printed in the warrant, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, unanimous.
We just saved 30 seconds from that public hearing.
Very good. Efficiency is everything.
We don't have to talk about it.
We'll have to change our minds. I'm going to take things a little out of order on the agenda, just since we're on the subject of April town meeting, it seems to make sense to go along with the blue paper, and then we'll go to budget update after that. I guess I would like to start by, we have a memo from the CPC in our mail tonight requesting, did everyone get this?
Where is that, Madam Chair?
It was in our mail folder,
Oh, this evening's?
yeah.
This is the full page,
No,
No.
you have it there, it's right there.
This?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, that's not. Yeah. Okay, says number 9 on it. The CPC is requesting 5 places on the warrant. I would suspect this will be a problem, though, didn't we have a deadline of January 18th?
The board can currently,
Yeah.
that's just a deadline.
Yeah. Okay, so if we could just go through and,
Citizens petitions.
yeah, if we could just go through and look at these, and then we can go through our blue packet. There's true street acceptances, I wouldn't see a problem with those. On the warrant, does anyone have any issue placing those on the warrant? No, okay. The zoning citizens petition, is that what's been submitted already?
That's correct.
Okay, so we already have that one.
There's no choice in that.
Yeah, and it's already there, so that, regardless. I'm gonna skip to number 5, and we'll go back to number 4. Eisenhower Pond Park authorization to spend excess funds from sale of town-owned land. We essentially spoke about that, I believe.
Right,
At our
these
meeting
must
last
be
week.
spent on the park, though.
That's correct. They were only limited to how much they could spend in the original article, and the excess.
It was 1.2, and the bids were
All right.
higher on the land off Marblehead Street, so this would just authorize them to spend that excess on the park. I believe, right?
I don't know what I don't know what the specifics are, but that's what I would hope the intention is.
Yeah. So as long as, well, we can always
Or
not recommend
actually,
it.
either on the park or again for additional
You
parcels
know,
somewhere else too.
Yeah.
Do you know if they're coming forward with a specific recommendation for spending, or is this just the authorized?
This is just the authorization.
Authorization. So they really haven't the plan at the moment.
No, though, with the sale of town-owned land, one of the areas that you can expend the funds on, as Mr. O'Leary stated, was for other land. That's allowed by state law.
I guess we'd like to see some more, just the article specifically, that there's no, probably no,
Right.
overall problem, but we'd just like to see more specifics of what the article, the wording and the purpose.
Well, I guess I have no problem putting it on, and we'll make a recommendation at the
Right.
appropriate.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that it's another elected town board that's seeking a spot on the
Yeah.
annual town meeting warrant.
Right.
It should be
Well, that's what
granted.
I'm saying.
Yeah, it should be granted anyway, but
But
obviously.
at their earliest convenience, we would like to just
No, okay.
know what it
Never
is.
mind.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
And then the zoning, the historic preservation bylaw, I'm not familiar with.
Certainly. They just brought that to my attention this morning and really don't have any written information. What it is, though, and I asked Mr. Rogers, can you give me any back of any other community that has this? This is not historic district bylaw or anything to that effect. Basically, it allows an individual who has a lot, correctness, that doesn't meet certain zoning requirements, is a subsidized lot, and they want to move a historic building onto that lot that was gonna be demolished, or a small historic shed, that they would be allowed to do that.
So why would one want to put this bylaw into place if they hadn't some shed or a building to move at this point?
Well, generally, if it's, let's say, Mr. O'Leary had historic structure on his property,
You've seen my shed.
It's historic.
and was going to, if I'm correct, was going to demo the shed. And Mr. Messeri is very interested in historical preservation, and wishes to purchase his shed, put it in his property. Unfortunately, his property is too small via zoning to accommodate that. And this would allow you, from what I understand, I haven't seen it yet, would allow you to have that shed or that building placed on your property.
Okay, I think I understood that. My question was, the fact that it's being added suggests that somebody has a problem that they're trying to solve.
Not
I
necessarily.
don't know if they have a
I mean,
problem. I think what we've seen over the past few years, and the Rowe property is an example of the house that's on the Rowe Farm property. It could be subject to demolition, okay? And some people in town think it should be preserved, but it's obviously not going to be preserved there. If they can move it, and again, cost effectively closer rather than somewhere else, it would be a good thing to do. We've also had other old barns that have actually been torn down and moved out of state, put together somewhere else, because the historical nature of them and how
All
they're
right, so I mean, that's
constructed.
something that's come up.
Right, so
before.
it's something that's come up before, and this would just allow for, my guess is allowing for the building inspector to issue a permit under this bylaw for a substandard, what would normally be considered a substandard lot for historic preservation purposes, to be built on by moving a historic structure to it. Just a guess, but.
Mr. Kelly?
But, I mean, that implies then we're not really talking about sheds, because sheds can be put on a whole lot. We're talking about much larger structures. And, you know, again,
Not
they
necessarily.
want it on the
Not
warrant, that's
necessarily.
on the warrant.
There's an old shoe shop that's part of someone's home right now on Elm Street,
Mhm.
which is just an oversized shed, but that has some historical significance to the town. There's a whole host of small structures around town that housed little cottage industries.
And you might want to put it on your lot, but, you know, outside the,
No, I'm just thinking about the person who's next to that small lot and all of a sudden has a barn next door to them all, you know, they wake up tomorrow morning and,
Yeah, but
There's a
my guess is
big
that there'll
barn.
be a
Yeah.
public hearing process.
Yeah.
Without seeing.
I don't have any objection to, you know, putting it on the warrant, obviously, but I'd like to get a little more detail as to what they're looking for before we make any kind of recommendation.
okay, look at the detail, but.
We're just awaiting additional information, but that's what I got from my conversation today.
Okay, well, that's helpful to have that much information. We'll look forward to getting the full details.
Do
Okay.
we need a motion for this?
Do we need a motion, please?
That will just include the articles that the planning commission are recommending.
Madam Chairman, I move that we place on the April town meeting warrant the articles listed herein, the memorandum from the Community Planning Commission. It's items 1 through 5.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yes, do we have to approve to put this on the warrant tonight? I'm just uncomfortable approving something that I don't even have in front of me to look at.
Why don't we approve a placeholder for,
Yes, I have no problem with approving.
To me,
I mean, I'd like
I'm
to
not gonna
say-
sit here and deny access to the warrant to another elected town board.
Well, I want to see what it says, or
Oh,
I
we're
may
gonna see what
deny
it says because.
I may deny it, because I want to see what it says.
okay, why don't we put a placeholder and we're holding.
I have no problem with
I'll
placeholder.
modify my motion to say placeholder.
I'll modify my vote.
Okay, so we're holding a placeholder.
Yeah, I have no problem with placeholder. I'd like to see it before I approve it.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Unanimous? Okay, do you want to take us on a quick tour of the April town meeting?
Certainly, we have
Warrant?
time here.
Yeah,
Articles 1 through 5 are just articles that are generally on the warrant annually.
routine.
18 articles. Article 6 would be the additional funds for the police station for the technology portion of the budget.
Do we have a number for that?
No, well, I mean, they've got a number, but we're going to review it.
It hasn't been
That's correct.
firmed up yet.
Is it just for the technology?
Wednesday night.
Nothing else?
That's what we,
Right.
The meeting's Wednesday,
Okay. The
All right, Wednesday night,
Yes, Wednesday night, 6:30.
6, isn't it?
It's posted for 6:30 on the board.
Oh, okay.
I was told 6, so I'm going to be
I
at 6.
I have
but-
6 on my calendar.
Yeah, I do too, but look tonight, it says 6:30.
Just as a follow-up, though, the factor says it's the same language, reconstruction, renovating equipment. Since she did a debt exclusion question for the first one, and she would do a debt exclusion question for the additional funds, the language has to remain the same. It was the same for the, I think, bachelor school, and we did the same also.
it's the amount, and what we're using it for is really set by the amount in the motion.
So the motion doesn't say it's for technology, it's,
The description.
Motion.
Yeah, maybe perhaps the description could, in the
The
description.
description will change.
It could change to include, to just say that it's for technology to equip the renovated station.
This will be basically what the ballot question will look like.
Yes.
Right,
That's what the ballot question will look like. Town meeting's appropriating wise, so that that motion can be more limited in scope.
okay.
The next article was, I forget who had asked for it, but it was regarding construction of low and moderate housing, transferring land to housing authorities. State law allows if the town accepts Chapter 40, Section 15A, to make the town meeting vote a majority vote instead of a two-thirds vote. Generally, that's an item which I think would be very useful for the board and for affordable housing if you're looking to transfer small pieces of land to the housing authority. I would recommend the board goes forward with this, but obviously it's the board's purview in this article.
Have we had difficulty in the past getting, what do? We do it,
We use some tunnel land over by Algonquin Road, in conjunction with another development off of Fluff Ave. Those developers also built a little unit, a duplex over in Algonquin, on a piece of town-owned land. I don't think it was necessarily a problem, it just changes it from a two-thirds to a single majority.
Though there, must be said, there were issues a number of years ago up on, the two small parcels, Mr. O'Leary, maybe you can recall, speak again with the N, no, not N, Quimby Road.
Quimby Road.
There was issues up there where, I think it may have been, I would have to double check, it may have been a majority, but not two-thirds. It was a,
Actually, I don't think we ever, I think what the concern was, we have some town-owned land that some abutters were looking to purchase. And the majority of the board of selectmen at the time, and Joe, I think you were here at the time too, this is Quimby Road, the town-owned land on Quimby Road, we opted not to sell them to the abutters at that time, because they may be buildable for affordable units that the housing partnership might wanted to do. Also, we, meeting the board at the time, said very strongly that we had no intention of selling it to a developer to do a 40B. You know, in other words, whatever was going to happen on those parcels, the town would retain control of the housing partnership. They were concerned that, you know, a developer would come in, bid, get it, and try and put a substantial number of units on those parcels. We opted not to sell it to the abutters and just hold on to a land bank of potential affordable housing use, or just leave it as open space. You know, we want to limit ourselves. But we didn't actually put it to a vote to town meeting. I think we had a petition for them to purchase it. We opted not to sell it. Any other questions?
okay.
You just slid right into that one, Kevin.
Reach for
Get
that
that
gavel.
gavel over there.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Chairman.
I like that.
Calling a lot of people acting these days. Amend code general bylaw, we discussed earlier. The two civil service articles, we discussed earlier. Appropriate money to stabilization fund, that's generally an article that when we get closer to town meeting, if we have any funds available.
It's usually at the very end.
Yes.
Not the money was going in the other direction.
We're optimistic, and as I discussed the local aid tonight, there's reason hopefully to be optimistic sometimes. Capital expenditures, we haven't made a determination yet on the capital expenditure side. Operating budget, we have discussed, and we'll continue to discuss in the upcoming weeks. Retirement trust fund, if we have any funds to place in the retirement trust fund, we generally do. That's a trust fund that we have funds put aside for retirements for various departments, for buybacks and so forth. Fund retirement obligations, at least this year, unless something comes out of the blue surprising us, the funding retirement obligations are generally going to be on the school side. And once we receive a final number from them, we're optimistic that we'll have a better number come the 1st of February from them to determine which teachers will be retiring and such. The next are all revolving accounts that need to be reauthorized. I will have up-to-date numbers for the board for our next meeting, as far as what all those accounts have in the current funds at this point.
Would it be possible on the revolving funds, in addition to knowing what the caps are, to get some idea of what the cash flow was
Sure.
for the period? how much money circulated in and out.
Are all of these capped?
No, not all.
Some are capped and some are not.
Rex
So-
capped.
Yeah, so if we could just have a little notation on that
Sure.
too, as to which ones are capped and which ones are not.
Yeah, I'd like to get some idea of how they're being used.
Yeah, I'll try to see if I can do a 3-year, the past 3 years, how they, what their levels have been. Next is from the Parks and Recreation Department, and actually Rita's here, actually. And this is regarding the Greenways grant match. If you, want to go throw, say a few words about that, if you.
Right.
Or rather me do it, okay. Okay.
Don't feel like it.
Oh, no, I'm kidding, I just didn't want to
No, I'm not gonna.
slight you.
Didn't want to steal your thunder.
No, you go ahead,
Okay.
you're good.
It's actually not one of the last ones, but we're through the revolvers.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I just generally went
Fund
through.
Doesn't cost you
DCR
anything.
Greenway grant match.
well, I got the next one, I got them.
They keep going, because those are all revolving
Oh,
accounts.
they're all.
Pass the rain barrel.
Yeah.
I'm
all right,
sorry.
got it, okay.
That's the special, on the other
There's
side
a
of the
whole page.
special ed
Got it.
fund.
I'm sorry, Mr. Messeri, when I was speaking about trust revolving accounts, I was speaking them all generally.
I was looking at just the first three.
Okay.
That's it.
This is a Department of Conservation Recreation Greenways grant application. He's looking for it for bridge work, bike trail work and such for the parks. From what I understand from Mr. Wood, I would get an update, I thought he said it was approximately $15,000 for a matching grant, that fund. Most of the Parks and Rec grants are generally matching now. Very few of them come out as a straight offer. They generally require some government match from the town.
And does the match come from the revolving fund or the operating budget?
Don't know, I can find that out.
That depends.
Okay, well, I guess in the attention on this, is the match intended to come from the revolving fund or the operating budget? And if it's intended to come from the operating budget, is it included in the operating?
No, it's not including the operating budget.
Can you leave it to either or, so that, right, if you don't have it, then at least Rex can make the decision.
The way the article's written,
It's an
raise and
article, so we
appropriate
don't.
or transfer from available funds, so until town
So
meeting, we're covered.
Yes.
If you don't have any, if you don't have the money, then Rec can make the vote to ask to take it out of the revolving, and such like that.
That's correct.
Is any of this gonna, I'm sorry, any of this being proposed for something within the confines of the enterprise? Like Ipswich Park?
Gibson.
He'll be making potential source too.
But Steve, it also, like the chair, sorry, it also could be for the path behind where I used, the house where I used to live on 185, and how it goes behind there, which isn't under the Hillview. So part of the work was gonna be on that also.
Did we have possession of the railroad bed, the town of North Reading land, do we know? Yep.
Yeah, I think we do.
Well, no, the one portion we were talking about before was down on Hazel Street,
Right,
but I don't know about,
the dollar part, or dollar from the state.
right, but I don't know about the other part behind.
It wasn't a dollar from the state didn't even own it. They
Right,
were trying to
$1,
sell us
yeah.
some
Right.
land they didn't own.
Great work if you can get it,
I think from what I understand, I don't think it's actually clear title yet.
I'm not just talking that place, I'm talking about where Rita's talking about. And maybe as it runs down to Park and Chestnut Street, where the old town barn used to be.
Right.
I don't know if we own it or not. And if we do, maybe those things should be put under the enterprise.
Okay,
Mr. Messere?
and to the town administrator, regarding that property, it seemed to me that we stuck, when I was on the Hillview Commission with Brian, we had paid the legal bills, it seemed like everything was done. So I kind of assumed.
I'll have to just double check on that one.
Research was done, found out, yeah.
No,
But the owners weren't the owners.
No, but I think the transaction, everything had.
I thought it was pretty well settled.
Okay. If we could move along, 'cause we have a hearing at 9 o'clock, and I want to get through at least the budget update before then. if we
Okay.
can.
Thank you. Last two articles. The secondary school building needs study from the school department, and that is for the middle and high school. No figure is listed, but their estimated range is $25,000 to $40,000. And their other, next article is the athletic field improvements. No figure is included, but it includes lighting, access, turf maintenance, accessibilities, other upgrades. I can't speak for them, but just historically, and Mr. Calgi, by his experience, this is probably going to be at least upwards of 6 figures.
You know, I know that there's some hope that, you know, through Dayton, the ability to have night games, that it will maybe be funded through revenue bonds or something.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I would assume the lighting is the football field.
That's correct.
5 years ago, we got a figure of $100,000 for that. It's 5 years ago. And it will be well into 6 figures.
The energy saving bulbs are a little cheaper.
That isn't the problem. That's what you hang them on.
Generally, just from my own experience, if you're lighting a field and trying to get the revenue, you need to use it for multi-use in the evenings. Generally, if it's just used for football, the revenue is not going to be as great, so you have to look at other uses of that field.
Well, they use it for soccer, they use it for a number of things now. It's used for more than just football.
Right now, field hockey and football.
It's just field hockey?
They do one soccer tournament at the beginning of the year, I think on Labor Day. That's about it.
Ms. Small?
So, you know, at this point, the field isn't conducive to soccer yet, because when they laid the pipes years ago, when the school put that, the school booster club put the funds into it, they didn't make it big enough for soccer, so they'd have to move some drainage pipes. And I'm not sure if that's in their original $150,000. At that point, then you could use it for soccer, and it'd be more worth it. But at this point, you can't play soccer at the field.
And
And lastly, we have a Hillview placeholder.
Which is for the potential purchase of a piece of property adjacent to Ipswich River Park, which is still in negotiations as far as the actual price, but it could be, you know, up to, I assume, $400,000 or something, $400,000.
What is?
The Wheeler property. No, not just one of the homes. Because there's 2 homes there. One of the homes. The left.
Also, in the last article, which isn't here because town council is in the process of drafting it, is the double pole bylaw. We've had conversations for the past few weeks on it, and I did email bringing the board up to speed on some issues regarding it today. And so that will be done, I think, by the end of this week.
Do we need to, based on what I read today, do you think we'll have some answers in relation to any proposed new bylaw and the legality of, or should we wait till October to find out how the suits have been settled?
From my conversations, and I will be speaking with that community in about 2 weeks anyway, again on this, is from my understanding about that challenge, is that they're challenging, they order to have the poles removed, and the pole owners are challenging the bylaw. This is slightly different. This is, you're talking about who is responsible regarding the wires, as far as who you could fine and so forth. Council felt it's a little bit of a different issue, though they are saying be cautious and wait to see how SJC responds to this legal action. But she thinks it's 2 issues, 2 separate issues.
Mr.
Yeah,
Bean?
yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, Mr. Younger, I agree. I think it's 2 separate. As you know, my discussion was not to penalize the owner of the pole, but penalize, just for sake of argument, Verizon for not moving their wires off of the pole, you know, within a timely fashion as written by the bylaw. That's what the discussion was. So I think that would be different than removing the total pole. It would be the utility not moving their utility to the new pole.
Right. From what I understand, the suit is the actual removal of the pole.
Yeah, but that's not what I'm interested in,
Right.
because once we get the wires moved, we can remove the pole.
And council understands that.
Yeah.
Just fall down, right? It'll just fall,
Yeah.
the line will fall
We
down.
don't have any double pole issues anymore, they're
We
just.
got a pole in a quarter.
Yeah, pole and a half.
It looked like they had taken some of that down.
With the 2x4s.
With the two
Yeah,
poles.
Okay.
They've done some-
looks great.
Is there anything missing from the warrant? Or any other issues surrounding the warrant?
The one question I have is a citizen's petition with all these maps and things. What's the difference between residence A and B?
Smaller size lot.
There's a typo in that, you see that?
Oh,
To
there's
see
one.
if the town will vote to rezone, there's a typo in rezone.
Oh, actually, I'm glad you picked
Or is
up on
that
that.
some tricky
That's
thing?
excellent.
That was how they typed the petition, and we cannot change the petition. We were asking my office, who's gonna pick up on that, and who's gonna question that, because we can't change that. Because Linda was gonna change
I haven't
it.
seen the petition, but were all the names signed or printed? Like the other ones we've seen, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter, that's what I was told.
Should have it somewhere.
No, I'm teasing, it doesn't matter, it really doesn't matter, so we've been told.
Okay,
So this
well,
is-
for everyone who's going to see that typo in the warrant,
Yeah, I think,
We didn't
it
do
doesn't
it.
come from us, yeah.
We don't know how to do that,
so
so
we
we
can
can't
kind of
do
go
it.
multi-family.
Yeah.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have a budget update. There were a couple of things I wanted to review tonight. The town administrator was gonna share with us in more detail. He had proposed some reductions to the budget to get it within 2.5%, and also shared with us an analysis of the local aid distribution for the next fiscal year. So I'd like to focus on those two things, and then I'd like to have a discussion about how we're gonna proceed to analyze and address large capital, and finally, anything else that anyone would like to bring up regarding the budget. And we do have a hearing at 9 o'clock, so we will have to stop and come back to that if we're not finished.
Okay. I'll begin, and we'll see how far we get.
Okay.
Beginning with local aid. Last week, I was able to go through the governor's budget and send out to the board, I think it was either Thursday or Friday, what I was able to analyze from their budget to determine how our local aid distribution was going to be. Over the weekend, I was able to get actual numbers for various accounts, where earlier I was only able to estimate the accounts. As I submitted to the, maybe not everyone's opened their, as I emailed, maybe.
Yeah, that's what I
Oh, yeah,
have
you
printed
did.
it
Oh,
out.
you printed it out.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, I'll make additional copies, I'm sorry. We actually increased even more from what we had last week, because we were able to get the actuals for state-owned land, the exemptions, veterans benefits, and so forth. For FY06, the governor's local aid budget is approximately $673,493 more than FY05. The major differences are Chapter 70, 528,163 difference. Two additional lottery payments, respectively 58,741 and 66,239. There is some smaller increases ranging from 5,000 to 8,000 for veterans benefits, Quinn bill reimbursement, state-owned land. In total, that brought you to an increase of 673,493. In our budget projections of last week, before the governor's budget came out, we were looking at a much smaller number, and I had here, I thought it was in the increase of about $235,000 last week.
Wasn't that over the 400,000 that
Right.
they put in? So-
Right. So we're looking at this point now at a much higher increase. Also, though it's minor in nature, but at this point, every dollar helps. Our assessments went down approximately almost $30,500 from the state. And that's primarily due to our reduction in the MBTA assessment, going down from 126,810 to 82,868. So technically, is a difference of net revenue less net assessments from FY05 to FY06 is just slightly over $704,000.
That was $30,000 from the Essex County tech, too.
I included as the net. There's a $10,000
30,000 is the total?
is a total difference. The reduction is $30,537. Because we did receive a $10,000, almost $11,000, which we have to get more information on. It's from they're charging us for Essex County Tech tuition. I assume it's, looking into it more, I assume it's more of a, for sending students to technology
It's
school.
paid on a basis of how many students.
Right. So as far as local aid goes, we're in much better shape this week than we were last week. Obviously, the House and the Senate still have to submit their budgets. Please be aware that not all communities receive Chapter 70 increases. A number of communities were level funded under Chapter 70. So whether that becomes a debate within the House where they look at a redistribution of the formula, or else they decide to throw additional money to those communities, we'll be optimistic and hope that this number stays for the town of North Reading. Also, the town of Reading also received, if I understand, a reasonable increase in Chapter 70 funds also.
Why would one town get some, but they do not fund it?
It's formula
It's
based.
formula based.
So the
unless-
danger is, because some of the cities didn't get anything,
That's correct.
so the danger is the House and Senate will influence the change to the formula.
But as far for our budgetary purposes, this is excellent news for us, and we'll use this as a basis at this point for our numbers.
And that brings us to where, about 2.5%? We,
Yes.
after fixed costs, we were at 1%.
Right, and I do have these sheets, and I was updating them up and through 6 o'clock this evening, trying to make sure all the numbers were correct. In fact, there was one number that was actually off, which brought us down a little bit more.
Okay, I'm wondering, before we get into the detail on this, we do have a hearing.
Oh, I'm
at
sorry.
9 o'clock. I apologize for interrupting, Mr. Younger. And I think what I would like to do is to take a 2-minute recess before the hearing, and then we'll convene the hearing. And we will come back, return to our budget discussion afterwards. So for anyone who needs a break, we'll have a 2-minute recess.
Okay.
And we will proceed. And we'll come back to this after our hearing. Yeah. You did? No one's going on the roof.
Very color coordinated. I know. It did. I know, just-
You just broke your headline.
Basically, train and be good over there. Yes, and then we come back.
Oh, yeah. Did you have a good visit?
Came in with the snow.
Yeah.
Seemed to enjoy it.
Did they stay with you or your other son?
No, they're still.
Really?
No, those we were making in the end. Have any questions, Paul?
Motion, executive session, and then he decides not to.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. We're going to reconvene the meeting. Okay, at 9 o'clock, and I apologize, we're a couple of minutes late. At 9 o'clock on our agenda this evening, we do have a show cause hearing for removal of an appointed commission member. And just to go through the process that in a previous meeting, we did vote that there was reason to hold the show cause hearing. The individual in question, Mr. Bill Reed, was notified of the hearing tonight at 9 o'clock. And now we're going strictly here according to the policy. We will be making a motion to go into executive session immediately. That's per the policy. So I'm going to have to ask others to leave the room after we do that. Mr. Reed obviously will be continued and included in the executive session. Once we vote to go, well, we don't have to, but assuming we do vote to go into executive session, Mr. Reed will then first be given the opportunity of whether he wants to hold the hearing in executive or in open session. Either way, even if it's held in executive session, we will return to open session before we take a vote. And that is per Selectmen's Policy 3.8, Step 4. So with that said, I will entertain a motion, Mr. Messeri.
Madam Chairman, I move to enter into executive session to consider the dismissal of a public officer and to return to open session to continue regular business.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to enter into an executive session is a roll call vote. Mr. Vino?
Aye.
Mr. Callagy?
Aye.
Mr. Misery?
Aye.
Mr. O'Leary? And the chair votes aye. So Mr. Reed will be staying with us. I have to ask everyone else who's not a member of the board to leave, hopefully briefly, and we will return to open session to vote.
The camera maybe on the clock, and make sure the sound is on.
Yes. The sound is up.
Maybe I should call.
I was gonna say, let's see the camera, and your phone on,
It's
Steve.
working.
Okay, Mr. Reed, thank you for coming. Would you like to continue in executive session, or would you like to return to open session?
Return to open session, please.
Okay. We need a vote then to return to open session, a motion?
Madam Chairman, I vote, make motion to return to regular session.
Okay, and we do not need a roll call vote, I believe, for that?
We do.
We do, okay, I'm sorry. I need a second first.
Second.
And a roll call vote, Mr. Vino?
Aye.
Mr. Callagy?
Aye.
Mr. Misery?
Aye.
Mr. O'Leary?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Just gonna wait for the camera to go back on and then we'll continue. Okay. Mr. Reed, we have returned to open session because Mr. Reed has requested that we do so. And I will allow Mr. Reed to speak first. Do you have any statement or any other comments you would like to make, Mr. Reed?
Yes, please. Forgive me for reading my notes. I stand here tonight nervous and embarrassed. Looking back over recent events, I have no alternative but to admit that I have no one to blame but myself. I never intended to hurt anyone or to anger anyone, but a review of what I've said would lead any reasonable person to other conclusions. I'm sorry. I'm particularly sorry for putting Jim Dimitri's good name in the middle of all this. I know my actions and statements sound like personal attacks, but they weren't meant to be. I have no explanation that will magically wipe away the ill will that I have caused. I can only repeat that it was never intended, and I regret having made those statements. I hope that you'll believe that I'm not a bad person, simply a good person who's made a bad decision. I believe that if we look through the dark emotions, we'll see that I've done no lasting harm to North Reading or to any of its residents. Indeed, I've done more damage to myself than to anyone else. My reputation is tarnished, and it will take a long time to build it back. I have to live with that. As satisfying as it might feel, sending me on my way is a lose-lose scenario. I lose my last remaining shreds of dignity and credibility. You lose an eager and energetic volunteer. The Conservation Commission loses the ability to conduct some of its business until our chairman returns from his 2-month vacation. And the town loses its loudest advocate of all things green and natural. Furthermore, that diversity and balance that you felt so strongly about last year would be seriously compromised. I've proven to you before that I can learn from experience and criticism. A year ago, after the discussions we held regarding our regulations, I took your advice and guided the Conservation Commission through extended research and consensus building exercises. The outcome was a remarkably fair, legally enforceable, logically conceived document that stands head and shoulders above what we have today. I look forward to the day we can discuss it further to prove that your fears are unfounded. Believe it or not, I've learned a lot from this painful experience. Most of it has been about me, and it hasn't been pretty. But the first step in behavior modification is realization. I strongly believe that if you allow me to retain my duties as Conservation Commissioner, we'll all benefit in the end. There'll be no more whining about personnel issues, no more nasty letters. Been there, done that, doesn't work. No, I intend to stick to what I do best, and that is to do everything legally possible to uphold the state's wetland protection laws, period. My commission is up at the end of the year. If I don't hold up my end of the bargain, you'll have every reason to let me go.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. I appreciate your apology, and appreciate you being here this evening. I will open it up to any comments or discussion from the board, and then I see that there are many interested parties here, and I will also open it to a comment then from the interested parties who have come out at this late hour. Comments from the board? Mr. Misery?
I think I've heard tonight the necessary apology, and I plan on continuing my support to keep Bill on the board, on the Conservation Commission.
Thank you. If any board member would like to make a comment, this is the time to do so.
I'd like to move forward at this point.
Are there any members of the audience seeking recognition? Mrs. Mullin?
Rita Mullen, 163 Chestnut Street. I'd like to appeal to everybody here that we're able to heal the town on this issue that I think got a little larger than it should have. I think the punishment that you may have been suggesting earlier is much larger than the crime that has happened. I think committee members need to be very comfortable on any committee to speak their mind, whether it be to Mr. Younger, to the selectmen, to the school committee, or to any other power that might be in place. I think week after week that not only this board, but I'm sure many other boards in town have bashed other committees, and maybe, this is a good lesson that maybe we don't do that and we're careful what we say. But I think we've all done it. I think this room itself has criticized the school committee, conservation, other departments, something, and even though it's minor, and it may not be what is considered character assassination, after a while, it kind of weakens, I think, the other boards when they hear particular boards say it, and I think we all do it. We're all probably guilty of it, every board that serves in this town. I think we're making an issue out of something that isn't really as big an issue as it is, and I think we're wasting a lot of time on this, where I'd like to see the selectmen be able to spend more time on reshaping the town and giving some positive direction to it in many areas that we have now that are problematic. And just last week, my second grade son and his buddy were called down to the principal's office, and Mr. Deceased did a great job of getting the three boys in a room and telling them that they don't have to like each other, they don't have to hang around, but they do have to get along for the good of the school. And all three boys understood that, shook hands, and they left, and a lot of things were said that hurt all three boys. So much of the parents got involved in it. I believe Mr. Reed and Mr. Dimitri can get along for the benefit of the town. I believe they're both extremely capable men and very big men. I believe they'll be able to put whatever happens behind them. And I believe the tone we should be setting as members of the committees is being able to speak without repercussions of getting fired. And right now, the selectmen are in a position to fire people. Mr. Younger is in a position to fire people that may speak out of what we hear. And I think that's unfortunate. I think we need to be able to speak what we feel and have it get handled. So I really do appeal to you, Mr. Dino, Mr. Callaghan, Mrs. Bailey, Mr. Messere, and Mr. O'Leary, to rise above it, to help find a way to rise past this occasion and keep Mr. Reed as a good, loyal member of conservation that he is, and allow the individuals involved to handle this, and I believe they will. Sometimes they tell you that if you do what first and second graders do, how they handle things, I think that we could handle it the same way, and you do have that power to do it. And Mr. Reed is not a seasoned politician like you are, Mr. O'Leary, and like I am, and like Mr. Missouri is, and the rest of you are still, and Mr. Vito, you're seasoned. Mr. Callaghan, you got thrown into it as a Bailey in the past couple of years. But we're seasoned. We don't say today what we said 20 and 30 years ago. Okay, but we weren't fired, and we're still all around to, I think, make the town better. So I appeal to you to please do what I think is right, and let the gentleman find a way to solve this. And I think the town will be in better shape for it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Mullin. Are there any others seeking recognition at this time? Mr. DeLobo?
Rick DeLobo, 25 Strawberry Lane. I just want to say I've known Bill for probably almost 18 years since we moved into the town, and he's always spoke his mind. He's always told you how he feels and everything, and you learn to, hey, that's how he views things. And in the heat of the moment, when discussions are going on, whether they're political or not, you say things that you might not always think are the best things in the world by other people, but you say them anyways. But Bill's character has always been, what's good for either the town or sports or the kids. he's always thought of everybody first, and I've always, acknowledged that and always been very proud when he's been representing, whether it's my boys or his boys or whatever. And I don't know Mr. Dimitri, and I don't think there was any ill will meant directly by Bill. It might have been the heat of the moment. We always have tough times and discussions. Things get said that maybe aren't really meant, but they get said. It's an accident, and, like Bill's done tonight, he's apologized for it. And again, I asked the selectmen to, take Bill's apology. Mr. Dimitri and him can work together. I mean, I believe that, boards can have differences, members, but, they can settle those differences and continue on. And as two parties, they can be very good for the Conservation Commission, what it means to this town right now. So I asked the selectmen to please vote favorably in keeping Bill in his position. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Delory. Any other comments? Sir?
John Piper, 109 Marblehead Street. Lately, there have been several developments near our house, so we have gone to the various Concom meetings and CPC meetings pretty faithfully. I've always been impressed with Bill's dedication on the Concom. He's been there for every meeting. He's trying to do his job of preserving the wetlands. Perhaps more to the point, he's also taken the time to attend many of the CPC meetings voluntarily to make sure that Concom's opinions are voiced as required concerning the various developments being reviewed by CPC. Also, I'd like to note that among the audience tonight, I see, excluding Bill, only one other member of the Conservation Commission, Mr. Dick, who I'm sure agrees that Bill should remain on the commission. In other words, if this was such a grievous wrong, I'm sort of surprised that the other members of the Conservation Commission, especially Mr. Dimitri, are not here. And from that, I simply have to conclude that, in their opinion, it isn't all that important. And I'd like the Board of Selectmen to take the same attitude.
Thank you, Mr. Piper.
I'm Monica Piper. I would like to say that I've lived in this town about 30 years. I've never seen anyone try to get the Wetlands Acts rewritten, and after reading through them, because we were being affected by wetlands or taking away thereof, I started reading through North Reading wetland rules, and I was shocked at the level of, let's say, or lack of quality. We really do need to rewrite those rules, and I know that Bill had made an initial attempt to do so. We can't just sit here in this town and sit on the rules we have and think that we're going to be able to enforce it as the developers decide that they are going to start reading black and white, because the intent and what's on paper are very different, and I'd like you to think about that, because that takes an awful lot of work, dedication, and know-how. And I do think that to get people who really know conservation and are interested in conservation would take a long, difficult step. I, as a biologist, for instance, I wouldn't want to be on the Conservation Committee for love or money. So seriously, you do have to attract qualified candidates for that position.
Thank you, Mrs. Piper. Anyone else seeking recognition? Mr. Wood?
Brian, 21 Chestnut. I'd like to reflect the astute words of my colleague, Rita Moen. The long and the short of it is this. We have a dedicated person, resident of the town, who wants to put time in, not only in the Conservation Commission, but the Land Utilization Committee, the Open Space Plan Committee. Bill logs his time in. Mistakes are made across the board, no matter what board you're on. I've made them. Everyone here has made them. Let's get past it. Let's move on. And let's not lose sight of the fact that what we have here is an individual who continues to put his time in and continues to look out at what is the best interest of the community and voice his opinion as to what are the possibilities that the community can go. What directions can the community go towards? There's never any one person that has the right answer, ever. And collectively is where we come up with the best ones. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Anyone else seeking recognition? Mr. Simons? Oh, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
Mrs. Downing.
I would like to appeal to the board on behalf of Mr. Reed. I've observed him over many, many years and have seen his commitment to that important concept of preserving our wetlands and greenlands in North Reading, but using good judgment. I know how almost virtually impossible it is to get good volunteers in any regard. I've been on the board of several nonprofits, and I can assure you, to find someone who is as committed, experienced, passionate, enthusiastic as this gentleman, it's hard to find. He would be a great loss if you chose to dismiss him from this board. So and the other idea too is I also know how difficult it is to deal with the personnel issues and differences of opinion and that art of negotiation in terms of saying the right thing, doing the right thing. It takes a lifetime. I am hoping that by the time I reach 100, I will have excelled in that and in dealing with the negative aspects that you might see about a person and how to approach that, how to say it without hurting someone, without intending to hurt them. So I totally empathize with him and the situation he's in. But the most important thing I agree with Mr. Wood is to let's get on, keep a valuable person. And again, I say it would be a great loss to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Downing. Mr. Simons?
Jeff Simons, 31 Hickory Lane. I admittedly have come into this issue just in the past few weeks, having watched a couple selectmen's meetings, but I know Bill is a neighbor and from some other things that we've worked on before, and I would just hope that you'd just perhaps take into consideration that I think what was behind some of the transgressions here that Bill's kind of admitted to that he could have done differently was his passion for his issue. That doesn't excuse certain types of behavior, but I think his passion led him to the emotional state that he might have been in when he said some of the things that he did, and I think that his long record of passion on this issue, Concom, should certainly be taken into consideration. And the other distinction I just would want to make, as someone who's defended other volunteers before, letters to the editor and other sorts of things, I'm very sensitive to what folks in the public say about being armchair quarterbacks and things that they just say to get their opinion across, which takes out people who work long and hard as volunteers, cuts them out at the knees. I'm very sensitive to that. But I would ask you as elected officials, and I would say the same thing to school committee elected officials, I think when you're an elected official, you need to really be careful to, I think having a thick skin kind of comes with the job, and you need to kind of go into that with eyes open, as I'm sure you all did when you got elected. But in this particular instance, to the extent that you feel that you were slighted as elected officials, I hope that you can put that aside as just being a little part and parcel of the job. I think that's a little different situation than people that try to undercut people who just spend many hours as part of committees purely out of their passion for their issues, as I think Bill does. So just to maybe as a bit of an outsider here, not so closely associated with this issue, that's my observation is I would just hope that you could make that distinction, don't take it personally, and make that distinction, put that aside, and hopefully takes Bill's dedication and his passion into account as you make your decision. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Simons. Anyone else? Mr.
Yeah,
Dick?
all day 36 Lindor, also on the commission. I read a statement at the last meeting, the meeting to find if there was going to be this meeting, and I won't read all of that again. I am going to read part of it again. After hearing what people have said tonight, it just reinforces my feelings about Bill. People have talked about his passion, about where he cares about. He's been in this town for 18 years, longer than some of us here, longer than myself, that's for sure. And then from knowing you know, the intent and what was said, it clearly wasn't meant as a diss to Jim. And I do find it interesting, as Mr. Piper pointed out here, Jim hasn't come to any of these meetings, so I don't know how much of an face he looks at this. I know both Bill and myself had tried to call him, and no phone calls were returned. So I personally wanted to get, you know, input from him as well on this before I came and spoke tonight, but that wasn't possible. I did talk to Tim Allen about this, and I know that I don't think he thinks that this is such an egregious issue as the selectmen do. But after hearing what everyone said here, I just want to reiterate that I would find it astonishing if you do find due cause to pursue this issue any further. Clearly, there have been several misunderstandings by all concerned, but it's been stated that neither Bill's nor my gripe, and my gripe has been about the same with this, has been with Jim per se. Rather, it's with the appointment process and subsequent fallout. As a member and chairman of the commission, Bill strived to bring change, which was quite apparent, talking about the rules and regulations. He spearheaded, you know, rewriting that. It was, interestingly enough, something he wasn't keen on himself about, but, you know, after attending classes on buffer zones and whatnot, you know, he realized that this is really what this town needs. His sense of community, as we've heard here, is really his backbone for what he does here. You know, everyone has talked about, he's had kids grow up here, he's committed to this community, and I think, you know, that's what we saw here. Few can deny that he's a consensus builder who often seeks others' opinions. As a commissioner, he took it upon himself to attend CPC and LUC meetings, as Mr. Piper pointed out. As a chairman, and I've been on the Conservation Commission since '98, Bill has been the most active chairman. I've only seen two. You know, it shows that he's concerned. He wants to get opinions out. It shows that he does try to build consensus. He did go to all these meetings. He did provide input to CPC, which is something it's unheard of as long as I've been here. And his intent is to, as a longtime member of this community, his sole interest is in maintaining the appeal of this town and protecting the wetlands with an eye towards fairness and integrity. So I'd leave it at that, but I think if you do find due cause, particularly after hearing his heartfelt apology here, I know some members of the selectmen thought that his second letter was quite brash, but I think what you're seeing now is, you know, a man who is apologizing. He's laid it all out for you, and if you know, in your wisdom now, want to kick him off, I think it would be a real travesty and just an injustice for him and the community.
Thank you, Mr. Dick. I think everyone in the audience has had the opportunity to speak, so with that, I will turn it back to the board for any comment that anyone would wish to make. Mr. O'Leary?
Just like to make some of my comments. First of all, I find the situation that we're in as a board to be very distasteful. None of us want to be here, sitting in this position, having to judge someone's character and determine whether or not they should be removed from a board, or committee, or commission. It's a very emotional decision that has to be made. And it's something that I've thought about quite a bit over the last few weeks, over the last month or so. One of the things, and just listening to the comments here, I think it's very important for everybody to recognize no one has ever called into question Mr. Reed's dedication, his knowledge, the amount of time that he's put in, the amount of service he's had, any of that, ever. Everything seems to be going back to this rules and regulation issue. That's not what we're talking about here. That's not what's bringing us here today. That's not why we're at the stage we're at. We didn't ask to be here. We meeting the Board of Selectmen, or myself personally, or anybody. What we had was an appointed member of a commission come before this board and make some statements and inject themselves into the process, which is fine. And you know, Rita and Brian, I've never sat here and held it against anybody to come in here and express their opinion on an issue. That's fine. I don't have any problem with disagreement. I don't have any problem with anybody disagreeing with my, being 180 degrees opposite me. That's terrific. I think the dialogue is important. I think what is important is the demeanor in which it's held. I think if we're trying to advocate for some sort of position on an issue, we should be able to do it based upon the merits of the arguments in support or against whatever those issues may be. It should never degenerate to the point where it gets into the dragging innocent people into the process here in involving what I consider to be calling into question their integrity, their service, their character, unnecessarily and unwarranted. Nobody asked Mr. Reed to come in and inject himself into the appointment process. He chose to do that, and that was fine. But what he said, and how he said, and how he drew other people into it, but the two members of the commission that he's sitting with, not just Mr. Dimitri, but Mr. Dimitri, Mr. Allen, myself as liaison, and the board collectively as a group, this is what we did back last spring, injecting it into and dragging us all into it on a personal level, I found to be abhorrent and totally unnecessary. Again, a choice that he made. He was then provided with an opportunity to come and meet with us and discuss it. And again, fired off a letter, which was no apology, no effort to reconcile, no effort to smooth the fences or build a consensus or even justify what he had said and how he had said it, or acknowledge that there was a misunderstanding, but came in and reiterated in the letter, first of all, much more strongly than he even said it that night, and then came in here when we had the meeting the last time, and just added more fuel to the fire and dug his heels in even deeper. And this is what I had the problem with here. It's dragging other people down, engaging in some character assassination of other volunteers, of other long-term members, long-term members of the community who are willing to give their time to the community, unnecessarily. And that's the issue for me. It's just a very basic issue. Common decency and respect for other people, and respect of their opinions, whether you agree or disagree with them. And this is what I haven't seen. And that's why I voted to go to this level, to this level of the show cause hearing. And I spoke with Bill yesterday at length. He's been so adamant. Bill, you've been so adamant about what you said, how you said it. I just find it very difficult to accept the fact that you didn't mean what you said. Because yesterday you told me you didn't. You just said you could have handled it differently, you could have said it differently, but you didn't retract what you said. And that's what bothers me the most. And I'm not going to sit here as an appointing authority and allow other people, such as yourself, to come in here and it's not even criticizing. It's come in and lie about other people's service and record and willingness to serve and what they're doing and how they're performing. That's what my biggest problem has been with this whole thing. It has nothing to do with all the rules and regulations and all the other stuff. Maybe that's an issue that's still a craw that's stuck, something that's stuck in your craw, but it's just a basic consideration for other people, basic consideration for their standing in the community. Just as you say, your integrity or your reputation has been tarnished. I mean, nobody did that to you. Nobody has ever called into question. No one's ever asked for your resignation. Nobody, as heated as the discussions may have been on those issues, no one ever asked for your resignation. No one ever went after you. No one ever questioned your motives or your intentions. And you came in here and you did question their motives, their intentions, and their service. In an effort to persuade the majority of this board and influence their decision and appointment process. And what you did, wrong, and what you said was a lie. And I can't sit idly by here as the appointing authority and allow that to happen. To me, that's the litmus test. I don't care where you are on the issues. It's how do you treat your fellow human being? And I think it was extremely unfair. I think it was unwarranted. And as a member of the Board of Selectmen, you're a reflection on me. We appoint you. And I'm sorry, I don't like the reflection I see. And I explained this to you yesterday. So that's all I have to say right now, Madam Chair.
Okay, any other comments, Mr. Callaghan?
Yeah. I too wish we weren't here doing this. And you know, it's odd, because I'm sitting here and I'm in agreement with what everybody here tonight has said. No one has ever questioned Bill's dedication, his passion for these issues that come before the Conservation Commission. No one ever did. The night we were doing the reappointment, if Bill had come in and said, you know what, you shouldn't reappoint him because he's wrong on all the issues. I totally disagree with him on the issues. I'm a member of the commission. I think you need to have someone who thinks this way and looks at the data that we collect and the information that we gather in a different way. I'd have disagreed, but I've respected that. But when you come in and, you know, it says, that you said you should know that, this is in your letter, which is dated January 10th. It's the second paragraph. It says, second, you should know that I did not intentionally mislead you at the December 20th reappointment hearing. I did, however, purposely choose my words carefully and deliberately in order to avoid lying. But what you said led us to believe that someone wasn't fulfilling their duties. And to me, you know, this is about, and I understand, and I wish you would come in and read what you read tonight back on, whenever it was, the first night we had this, on January 3rd or January 10th. You know, there were other members of that commission that had their integrity called into question. For what reason? Because they held different beliefs in terms of conservation issues. How would it be if this board ever started calling in people because they disagreed with their beliefs? I've disagreed with a lot of committees and commissions in town. You know, and I've made that known. I disagree with their opinion on a particular issue. I've never called into question their integrity. I've never called in question or tried to put out there that these people aren't actually doing the work to reach their opinions. And that's what I have a problem with. That and I gotta be quite honest with you, this letter. I mean, as Rita said, you know, she pointed out herself and Mr. O'Leary, Mr. Messeri, Mr. Vino, the four of you have been in the public eye, local politics for a long time, and you choose your words carefully, right? And I know what you're talking about. I mean, I know what it was like for me when I first sat here 3 years ago. You know, I mean, you look at hindsight and you say, well, maybe I should have approached that from a different angle, as opposed to everything head on at times. But when you sit down at a word processor, you're not sitting there just talking. You have the ability to self-edit. And when I read this letter, and especially when I get to the second page of the letter, the day I read it, I couldn't believe what I was reading. you put in bold print, they lied to get themselves appointed. This is 2 weeks after the original meeting that we're talking about. And then you go on in the letter to accuse, you say, I'm speaking as you wrote the letter. I've been very open, honest, and fair in dealing with the Concom's perceived problems. I don't feel the same can be said for the selectmen. Well, I guess you're telling me that I'm not honest and I'm not fair. If this is all about these rules and regulations, the only thing I can say is let it go. Because there's time and place for that discussion when it comes up. And you have every right to your opinion and to argue for it as vehemently as you want it, as passionately as you want. But when we start using other people as a weapon to try to persuade people or change the vote, that's when it crosses the line. And I know, as Rita said, and I have a lot of respect for Rita, we had a lengthy conversation on the phone, that people, sitting in this room, there's a lot of people that are involved in this, that you get thick skins. And, I didn't like some of the things that were written in this letter about the board, and he doesn't need me to defend him, but I don't like the way in which, basically, Mr. O'Leary was also attacked in this. Not on the issues, but, accusing people of this tactic and that tactic. I don't know, I must have been in a different room, because everything was out in the open in terms of that appointment. Absolutely right. Were we looking, or was I looking to appoint someone who held my beliefs in terms of those rules and regulations? I admit that then, I admit that now, and I stand by that. And I don't apologize for it. We're all entitled to different opinions. But when we start dragging people down to try to make that point and personally attacking them, that's when it goes too far.
Can I interrupt for a moment?
So right ahead.
I would just like to remind the members of the board that this is a show cause hearing to determine whether there is cause to remove Mr. Reed. It is not a forum
Thank you.
to
I'm sorry.
lecture Mr.
Okay,
Reed for everyone. I would
all
just
right.
like to, and if we want to have a discussion among ourselves.
Okay, well
Whether or
then,
not this is cause, I just want to remind, and that goes to everyone, so I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'd just like to remind that that's the purpose, not to have Mr. Reed sit there unnecessarily.
okay,
be lectured by us.
I apologize. I will get to the point of this then. The charges that were brought for the show cause hearing was for preventing misleading and inaccurate information to the Board of Selectmen pursuant to a Conservation Commission reappointment, and for allegedly making public false defamatory statements regarding other Conservation Commission members. Charges were made, and that statements were made that led us to believe that members of the commission were not attending site visits Saturday, but the Saturday site visits. The intention or the interpretation I had of that was they weren't doing their job. They weren't going on site visits. I investigated that. I checked with other members of the Concom, including Mr. Dick, who spoke earlier this evening. He was aware, and I was led to believe from my conversation with Mr. Dick that you also were aware that the members were making site visits during the week. So I feel that I was being misled, and by doing so, Mr. Dimitri and Mr. Allen, they're fulfilling their duties as member of the commission. We were being told that they weren't, that there was malfeasance on their part. So therefore, I think in the investigation that I did, that those were false and misleading statements, and that it did defame Mr. Dimitri in particular, and to a lesser extent, but nonetheless still Mr. Allen. And for that reason, not because of any held beliefs in terms of conservation issues, I do believe that I will be voting to remove Mr. Reed from the Concom. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? And again, I remind we're not here to lecture Mr.
And I apologize for that.
No,
I thought that's where
No,
we
I'm
seem to
just
be
trying
going.
this
and
is kind of new.
If I overstep that, I
We don't do
apologize.
that usually, and so I'm just trying to, like I said, we're here to talk about cause. Mr. Reno?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And I will keep right to the issue at point, and that is the part of the charges that in allegedly making public false defamatory statements regarding other Conservation Commission members. And that is the issue I do have, is that those statements were made, and I just think it was wrong and inappropriate. And I do have a concern if Mr. Reed would be able to go back and work with that board after making them.
Madam Chair, I'd like to just address something else that was brought up tonight, which again, I think was someone was asking, a couple of people, as a matter of fact, I remember the commission, why is it Mr. Demetri and Mr. Allen here? They're not being called into question, and I wouldn't expect that they would be here. I mean, so, and the way that it was said, I just think is very unfair too. The inference was is that they don't care enough to be here. Well, my guess is they don't care enough to be in harm's way again and be a target once again. So I think it's very unfair again that they were even mentioned and had to be brought up in relation to this too. And again, to me, you want to mention the name, no intention of mentioning the name. I just think the way that the whole thing was handled was totally inappropriate and wrong.
When I look at, were you seeking recognitions, Lisa?
Go ahead.
When I look at, our policy does not define cause, but when I look at whether there's cause to remove a member of a board or commission, I ask myself whether they're derelict in their duties, whether they've made some very poor judgment in carrying out of their charge within their committee. And in that case, I have to answer no. In fact, I think that Mr. Reed has been extremely dedicated. He was the only conservation commissioner who was there the day that we walked the Smith land, and he walked it longer and a further investigation than anyone walking the property that day. I go to many evening meetings of various boards and commissions. I see Mr. Reed there when we talk about the master plan. I see him there at the community planning commission meetings. I see him trying to get a well-rounded and fully informed view of what's going on in the town in the relation to the Conservation Commission. And I see him doing the same to share Conservation Commission information with other boards and commission. Did he exhibit poor judgment in coming before this board and publicly maybe making accusations that he should not have? Perhaps he did. We all, even at this table here, admittedly have different levels of diplomacy and how we handle ourselves. And some of us learn faster, and some of us learn slower, and some of us may never learn. Mr. Reed has come here today and read what I heard as a genuine apology by a man who was courageous to come here and publicly, I think, take responsibility for what he said, publicly apologize to Mr. Demetri. And Mr. O'Leary said, question is, how do you treat your fellow human beings? Do you realize that sometimes they can be fallible, and sometimes you have to talk to them about that and call them on the carpet, and then sometimes they understand what they've done and they have the courage to come in and own up to that, which I think Mr. Reed has done today. And would I like it if he did it 2 weeks ago in his letter? Sure. Would I like it better if he never came and we didn't spend an hour of our time when we could be reviewing the budget? Sure, I would like that even better. But like I said, admittedly, Mr. Callaghan just said, you sit here at this table, you sit in the public eye, you work within it, and you learn. You learn over time. You learn by your mistakes. Mr. Reed mentioned, said that he made a mistake, and I think it would be a reflection of our board if we were not gracious enough to accept that. It would be a reflection of the others on the Conservation Commission if they are not gracious enough to accept a man who's willing to own up to his mistake and someone who has been very dedicated to the charge of the Conservation Commission, and to his work within the town, and cares about North Reading just about as much as anyone I've ever seen, who's made a transgression, one he's apologized for, and one which I think, if this board wants to talk about how they treat their fellow human beings, one I think that this board has made their opinion and their concern about that duly noted. And I think that Mr. Reed should continue on the Conservation Commission. He could have walked away 2 weeks ago. He could have walked away tonight. It would have been much easier for him. He chose not to do that. He wants to continue with his work. And I support that. I accept his apology. I would hope the board would have the same level of compassion and understanding. And I sincerely hope that, because if this board does not, I really question how this board treats its fellow human beings and what it reflects on this board. If they cannot understand that people in the town are fallible and different people have different ways of doing things, but when they come around, I think we should be big enough to accept that apology. And I accept it, Mr. Reed, and I hope that it is the will of this board that you continue your good work on the Conservation Commission. Mr. Messeri.
I would appeal to my fellow board members to take into account Mr. Reed's dedicated service, to consider his strong apology this evening, the fact that he's sitting here in this situation in the public eye, defending and wanting to continue his work on the Conservation Commission, I think deserves credit and consideration as we ponder what to do with the show cause hearing. So again, I would appeal to all my fellow board members again to take into consideration the positive side of things and the apology that was made, albeit late, and it would have been nice if that letter never came about. But I think a mistake has been made and it's been acknowledged, and I think it's time to move on. And to lose talent in areas of the town from volunteers, I think is a shame, and we need to take that and put that on the scale when we're making our decision this evening.
Okay, I would like to make a motion.
Madam Chair.
Briefly, please, Mr. Reed.
I'd just like to tell it through, whether you briefly or not. I don't care what time it is. Your remarks appear to be somewhat targeted towards myself, and I'm trying to call on everybody's common good, and I've never called that into question. And it's not as though I don't weigh it heavily. I also take into consideration the conversations that I've had with whatever individuals may be involved with certain situations and occurrences. I didn't put myself in this position here. I didn't put myself in this hearing tonight. I didn't continuously, over the last 5 weeks, bring us to the brink here at this point. And it wasn't through any lack of effort on the part of yourself, Mr. Messeri, to try and massage the situation as best as could be done. But I think to say that if this board would have taken action which would remove Mr. Reed is a poor reflection on the board as a whole or on us individually, I think is unfair. Because maybe I am being called into question now, but I didn't take the actions that were taken. I'm going along for the ride right now, and yeah, I'm in a position where I have to make a decision. And I don't like having to put this position. And I'm hearing what he said tonight. I heard what he said yesterday, which is a little bit different. A little bit different. It was different to the point where I was still scratching my head as to what was taking place and what was being said and what the intents were. And yeah, diplomacy isn't everybody's strong suit, and I recognize that as well as anybody else. We just said you may develop thick skin. Well, I developed that a long time ago, personal standpoint. But I still find it extremely, extremely distasteful and unacceptable to have people's integrity called into question, deliberately called into question, for whatever the motives are, particularly when it's wrong. I acknowledge Bill's service has been terrific. It's been terrific. Everything that's been said tonight is true. It's been terrific. And yep, a little rough around the edges, as Rick pointed out, and so be it. But boy, when you step over that line, at what point do we have to take responsibility for our appointees, and at what point do we have to, or what point should we be protecting the other people who are volunteering in our community, who are putting in the time? How much do they have to be subjected to? Are we making a big enough point here tonight that we're not going to tolerate this sort of stuff? Why did it take so long to get this apology? Why did it take so long?
Is that a rhetorical question?
No, why did it take so long? First, if you can't answer, that's fine. You don't have to.
Takes me a long time to
Okay.
formulate.
Choose your words. No, it's fine. But part of the question that came to my mind, and I posed it yesterday, was what would lead me to believe that you're not just counting heads and saying, uh-oh, I think I'm in trouble, I think I'm gone. I have to tell them what they want to hear. Which is what I'm hearing, which is great. It's something that I wrestle with in this moment.
My comments were not aimed at you, they were aimed at the entire board of me asking them to listen to someone's apology. So just to be clear, they were not aimed at you. Maybe I used your words because it rang in my ears and I thought, how do I treat a fellow human being? So maybe that rang in my ears and I was asking the whole board to listen to what sounded to me tonight like a genuine apology, maybe a little bit late, but a reason to remove a dedicated, knowledgeable servant to the town who sits here tonight, obviously because he still wants to serve. So my comments were not aimed at you, Mr. O'Leary, like Mr. Masseri. They were an appeal to the rest of my board to look at Mr. Reed's service overall, not one single action that you made. Maybe you find it so egregious as to supersede any of his other actions. I do not. I heard his apology. Should we be here again 6 months ago? 6 months from now, I may think differently. And the people sitting by Mr. Reed's side here tonight may think differently too. But we're here tonight. He's been a dedicated advocate for the charge of his commission. He's made, you yourself said this is not about the rules and regulations. It's not. And Mr. Callaghan said that too.
That's correct.
So this is a single transgression for which he has apologized.
Excuse me, I see it as more than a single transgression.
A single and a letter.
I see it as a series of, I see it as the 20th, a letter.
Well, I think the
Okay,
question,
so good. But anyway.
the question we all have to answer for ourselves tonight, and the reason we're here for this hearing, is this cause for you, each of you, each of us, individually as selectmen, to remove Mr. Reed. For me, when I look at it overall and I hear his apology, it is not. And when you vote, when each of us votes tonight, we will be issuing our answer of whether we think it's compromised.
I'll move for a 5-minute recess.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor of the recess, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. 5 minutes. And we'll be good.
thought it looked like
funny
a tree.
badge to wear tonight.
Yeah.
It's not a
From the
keeper.
library.
Well, I couldn't,
It's not a keeper.
Parked there and through. Well, I would love it if you could cordon off and give that piece of land to the town that included the fire road, just past the fire road on the western side.
Well, get out there.
The town could attach that to the town. That would be the ideal way to go.
I can't go in the men's room anyway.
That's the problem.
That's the problem.
You won't get ahead if you
I
can't.
should do that.
Yes, no, they're talking.
Except
Yes.
I got stage fright.
You've been sitting here for
I have to believe that everyone's entitled to a certain amount of privacy.
After that, you
Well,
should
I-
be
If
allowed.
they want to have a private hearing, let them have it.
No, it's ideal now, because you can make them stop, you can stop the poison.
That's okay.
Seems like I'm working.
See if your pixels the screen is there.
Does that relate to conservation somehow?
No, but it's this male thing, like, it'd be like,
Come on, girls, you wanna go to the ladies' room? What a good idea.
It's gotta have 4 vehicles to get out there.
So bad. See, I don't have TV at home. See, I don't have a TV at home, so I never get to look at these sessions.
Would you wish you did?
But,
Would you wish you did have a TV?
well, you know, up to now, since I've written North Reading off, I always have. I don't go to most places. And
Madam Chairman,
up to now, I have never looked at these names. I only vote for the incumbent. I always vote for the new person. I never vote for an existing person. I always vote for the new person.
What a great policy.
And that way, I hope to get rid of a little bit of it. But basically, I must say that I have, in the 30 years, gone to town meeting twice.
I don't know if you.
And I have avoided as much of this town as possible.
There's a few on the board.
It's very impressive that you're here tonight.
Yeah.
The reason
That's a great thing.
You know, I mean,
The other thing too is.
I do believe in conservation, and I really
Preservation
don't
Act.
like.
I don't like your.
It's the one note coming up for.
You didn't mean that.
being resolved, because it's like a 401K plan.
We're not a swamp.
And we need to look at this
Oh, well,
more
that's-
seriously. We didn't have really a funding source for
I mean-
it.
Had me?
Nor could we convince the voters in North Reading that they
Yeah,
should
that was
get
his
an increase of
backyard.
1 to 3% on the tax levy on top of it. We can all override.
Whereas I am a biologist, and I do have a vague understanding of what we do for wetlands and swamps and everything else that we're doing here. This
Then,
town scares the hell out
also
of me.
investing in 401K, there's a match every single year.
I don't make
So
money.
with a stable match up to 3%.
What do you do?
You're a line set. Did I say it out loud? Oh, I'm so sorry. Did I say that out loud?
Don't.
But to me,
No.
at least it's not sitting right
We
now.
have certain people who were on
It's just,
fire.
yeah,
I
it's
still remember he said, well, we should vote no because it's.
Where's Steve?
Yes.
Steve?
We're gonna try this week to try to flood. Bring the snow blower down and get rid of 30 inches of snow.
Yeah, I wish I had.
We're gonna try to melt it down. You can stay it on my feet. Yeah, we're gonna give it a shot. I talked to my
That's nice.
Tell you, I'll be voting for Mr. Yogi, I'll be voting for Mr. Messeri.
We're gonna reconvene? one more round of comment from anyone on the board or public seeking comment? On the board?
Beginning first.
Yes, I am. You'll call for the recess. But...
I think, based upon all the actions that have taken place, conversations up until yesterday, while I hear them, I think it's too little too late. And I find, again, it comes right down to bottom line, how you treat other people. I can't sit here and allow what happened to happen. And I think it, for me, I've been very consistent over the years in relation to handling situations like this. He's not the first one to be called before this board. He's not the first one that I've had to deal with in relation to either reappointments or not reappointing. And again, as I stated earlier, my first and overriding litmus test is how you treat people. And I find the actions that he took to be egregious enough. And I don't take pleasure in this at all. Sorry.
Board, and then I will get to him. Mr. Callaghan?
Yeah, in the almost 3 years that I've sat here, this is without a doubt a vote that I really, out of all the votes I've taken here, this is the one I wish I didn't have to make. But I just say, I appreciate the service and dedication, but I also appreciate the service and dedication of the people that were defamed. And I feel this is a necessary step, not one that I want to take, but one I feel I have to take. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Mrs. Piper, and then Mr. Piper, and then Mrs. Muller.
I'd like to say how he treats other people. Part of my measure of this community is how people treat me, okay? When I go to the meetings, it's nice to have someone who is there when it's early and who stays there late and goes through the whole session. It's nice to have someone who explains things, who is available, who goes and answers your questions, who comes to the other meetings in support of the CONCOM. That's how I view how Bill has treated me. He has been there for me, and he has taken care of me. And I think that's very important as you look at how he treats other people. Don't just view it as a one-shot. View it as how he treats the community, because that is how he treats other people. You have to do a global look. You can't just say, he pointed a finger at him, when in other sense of words, he's there for tours, he's there for questions, he's there representing early. He doesn't leave the meetings early, and he goes to the next meeting. I mean, that's how he's treated our community. And I think that's very important as you measure it in your little global cubes, which is easy to start saying this cube and that cube and that cube's North Reading. That's not true. The cube of North Reading is all of North Reading and its citizens, and he has damn well given a lot of time to us.
Thank you, Mrs. Piper. Point extremely well taken. Mr. Piper?
Yes, I'm sorry if I'm misquoting the chairman's words, but I believe they were basically that the members of the board should ask themselves whether Bill has adequately and is adequately performing his duties on the commission. I'd like to add to that a second question that I think you should all ask yourselves before taking your vote. And that's based on the fact that we're all people. People are not perfect. And I don't think you're going to find a single person in North Reading, probably not in the entire world, who likes everybody equally. Everybody likes some people more than others, for good or bad. I'd just like you to ask yourselves the question, if the roles were reversed, if hypothetically this were Mr. Dimitri sitting here having said various things about Mr. Reed, would you be voting the same way?
I can answer that unequivocally. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Unequivocally.
Mrs. Vaughn?
I need to appeal to you. And Mr. Vino, you made it a swing vote because, you know, that you both have said what you feel. But some of the things that Mr. Reed maybe is gonna do it because maybe, again, he's not a seasoned politician, and maybe he's not gonna be able to handle it right, and maybe he's afraid how it's gonna come out. But as the chairman of the committee, when I change meeting dates or do anything, I poll my committee and it's discussed in the committee meeting. And some of the things I think that you keep saying are lies and this or that, is that some of the things that he was upset about, and I think you do have to go back to it, is that he felt it was very unjust that a member that was a member that had shown up at conservation meetings for over a year and a half didn't get appointed, and the people, you know, another gentleman was sought out to take that position. And even though those two people were wonderful people, he had somebody that had sat on that. He took that as a disservice to the person who'd done it, and it bothered him, and it bothered me as chairman, and I'd be in front of you if the same thing happened. Some of the things that you're saying are lies weren't lies, and a couple of those people said it. They'd make Saturday meetings. They changed their mind afterwards, and that's okay. But it also wasn't discussed in there, so please don't take everything in there. As if the man came in here and set those people up, and I think that's what they're saying. And Mr. Vino, I am appealing to you. We sat for 7 or 8 years in this town, and we couldn't build the Bachelor of the Swan Pond because we couldn't shake hands and accept things and say, I'm sorry I made a mistake, I'm sorry I made a mistake, I'm sorry I made a mistake. We couldn't do it. It cost the town a lot of money because we couldn't do it. You now have a person that you're now questioning, is he apologizing? He's apologizing to you. I don't think, I honestly believe if Mr. Dimitri or Mr. Dick felt that strong, that they would, I mean, I'm not sure they have to be here, but they would have said to Bill, because they're honorable people. I think it should be removed. I think they can work with him. I think Mr. Dimitri is a very honorable person. I think this guy's an honorable person. Please, don't take his word and say it doesn't matter. I believe they can work together. Please, for the good of the town, accept the apology. He's put his hand out. Take his hand. That's why we worked for the past 8 years. We haven't done anything else in this town except worry about the Bachelor and the Swan Pond. We haven't got a police station. We haven't done any of the other things that we had to do because we can't put our hands out and accept an apology. Please, he's finally doing it. If you don't think he's doing it, a year from now say he lied to us. But please, accept the apology and move on. Please.
Thank you.
I accept the apology. And I do think we need to move on, and I do believe that the Conservation Commission, that all the gentlemen on it are big enough to shake hands and work together, and I would like to give them the opportunity to do so. There are no other comments on it to vote? I'll entertain, well, if there's no, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to rescind the appointment.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry.
Did you have a comment? Okay, Mr. Messina looked like you wanted to say something. I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Kelly.
I move to rescind the appointment of Bill Reed from the Conservation Commission for presenting misleading and inaccurate information to the Board of Selectmen pursuant to a Conservation Commission reappointment and making public false defamatory statements regarding other Conservation Commission members.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, Mr. Reed, after the vote, will you please leave your apology with the recording secretary for the record? Thank you. All those in favor of Mr. Callaghan's motion, which is to remove Mr. Reed, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say no.
No.
No. Thank you. Thank you to all of you. Thank you, Mr. Reed. You have a meeting,
Mr. Marks, thank you, Bob.
Okay. Uh, Before we do the,
You have a regular,
a couple other agenda items first. Mr. Younger, as far as the budget discussion, is that something we have to do this evening?
No, I did pass out where we are on the current budget. We have reached our 2.5% with our small capital included there, and then the reference changes. Obviously, the key is to reach the 2.5% goal, and I think there is still some areas that we can move things around if the board feels more comfortable in reaching that budget area. I've also printed out here for the board a copy of where general government and school and where we are as far as our revenue projection and projected deficit. As of this afternoon, general government, under their budget, is at their 2.5% increase, including small capital, at $10,736,829. The school department, I think, is reduced down to approximately a 5.4% increase. Let me just make sure that number is correct. $5.54%, I'm sorry. And that's at $19,136,373. And then the unappropriated costs and the shared costs is approximately $9,753,135, which brings us to a total budget of $39 million. The request budget was $39,626,337. Of that percentage, 48.3% of that is the school department, 27.1% is general government, and 24.6% is the unappropriated share or the shared costs. The shared costs include all snow and ice deficit retirements, insurance, employee benefits, retirement charges. The revenue projection with the increased state aid is $30,002,752. Projected deficit of $623,585. It has been common practice, if you reach down to about a $50,000 deficit, you can make up that difference in revenue.
Not there yet.
We're not there now. Basically, as far as the general government, it's there at 2.5%, including small capital. If the board may recollect, you did not include small capital last year in the budget. The police vehicles weren't until the fall. The police vehicles are still in this budget at 2.5%. Also with other fire, the items that we discussed last week.
Bob?
when we look at this then, under the appropriated shared costs, the uncertainty there yet to be determined is the impact on the school retirement.
Yes, that includes the maximum.
This is the max from that budget meeting.
This number generally is the worst case scenario. This includes a 15% health insurance increase based on what we had appropriated last year. If we don't expend all that amount this year, then the number actually is lessened. That includes the retirement of the high amount from the schools. My assumption is we'll hear in early February what the actual number is there. It also includes, we did make a slight reduction there in state charges, as I stated earlier. Instead of 142,000, the number is actually now 110,000. So that included, I included that reduction here.
When Tom Tracy handed out the latest budget forecast, it was at the school budget meeting, I think it was the same as
Yes.
what we had received at our meeting. He had put in for local aid growth 4.3%, which was 252,000.
Right.
And you're projecting that number to be 704.
Well, that's the net, it's actually, local aid is growth 673, it's when you reduce, we also picked up 30,000 in a lesser assessment, that would be a different line item. But yes, he did project at 250.
Right, so if I take the 250 from the 704, it's about $450,000.
That's correct.
Increase.
That's correct.
When I put that under the number that he had, I come up with 39 million, roughly 138. I mean, it's an approximate number versus you have a number of, I think it
41
was
million.
39. So I'm just wondering what the difference is.
I'll
there.
have to relook at his numbers. The numbers I took were off sheet also. I'll just double check those numbers here.
But we're carrying the full risk on the unappropriated costs.
That's correct. We're carrying, this is basically the max for all the accounts.
And then all the small capital items are in?
With the exception of the items I previously stated is one, Mr. Wood had two items, there's one in there. We did not include, and there was a minor amount, it was a few $1,000s of tools for the mechanic. I did not want to deal with that until I gave inventory. But the major things such as the police vehicles are still in there.
And what about the technology?
Technology, there's two items. You have the operating budget.
I was
and
talking about, there was a number that Tom had in there, I think it was roughly 60K in
Right.
capital.
Right.
Is that considered large
Large
capital?
capital, anything over $10,000 is not large capital.
Mr. Chairman, just in relation to, just for my own information again, the unappropriated shared costs, I don't have last year's numbers in front of me, are approximately how much?
Sure.
We were projected cost of 9.75 million. Last year was approximately how much?
Break out mine here, but I would say,
If you have got it at your fingertips.
no, you might finish that, I just have to, let's say 8 million, Steve.
Okay,
Yeah, let's say that is the number.
What I'm just trying to back into a little bit here is to see, in the school department, it's all said and done, the general government we're now looking at 10.7 million. Last year, we were
10.4. 10,471,000.
approximately.
No, get exact.
And then school department,
Including the override, 18,131,303.
3,131,303. Now, this 19,136 includes the override?
Yes, it does.
I'm just trying to, as far as
One of the big killers is
yeah, you're $1.7 million right now in
the
retirement. and
unappropriated shared costs.
Right. Okay, and best case scenario on those unappropriated shared costs, we guess is that it could come down $150,000 in one area, which went to retirements, on a good case basis. And then the insurance, we're not sure, but if you save
Maybe $100,000.
Maybe $100,000, so $250,000, so you're still facing a $400,000 deficit if things break our way.
Right, I mean, there are some,
We're closer today, though, than we were
yes,
a week ago, so.
It's clear to me that the school department has more work to do too.
Well, a lot of that could hinge a large amount on their retirements.
Well, let's say maybe.
No, I'm not
$150,000.
talking about the shared costs. I mean,
No.
that's gonna be what it's gonna be.
Okay, yeah,
I mean, it's contractual, there's not much
right.
we can do
But I
about it.
mean, it depends on how many actually retire.
Balancing the budget is gonna
Yeah.
require that the school do something less than the 5.25 or whatever percent it is.
5.4%.
5.4.
other questions?
Thank you.
Joe?
No,
No,
I'm all
sir.
set.
Okay.
I will continue to keep the board updated on any changes. Please check your emails. Mr. Vito, I'm very happy to supply you with the hot copy.
Courier.
As he's noticing,
I'm getting them. I'm getting them. I'm not complaining, I'm getting them.
You know, so.
Smoke signals,
Mr. Younger, anything else under your town administrator's report?
Yes, one thing, I know it's late and we don't have many items here tonight, but one thing I wish to do, and I wish to thank our fire department. I don't know, had people read the Boston Globe regarding the response rate on communities. Our response rate was at, there's had different categories. The top level was responding in less than 6 minutes. And they met that criteria, I think along with the towns of Reading and I think Wakefield, I'm not sure about Wakefield, I'm pretty sure it was Wakefield, in this area. And they do an excellent job, and I think the town should be proud of them. There are a number of communities that didn't reach that number. And it was actually funny, if you noticed, it was certain dots on the map, and I think the red dots were something greater than 6 minutes and such. Acting Chief Harlow, when I was speaking over the weekend, and he said, well, I'm going to check into those that we were, it didn't make sense why we were slow responding to that. And that's what I respect and thank to this department, the people who work in that they take the job seriously. And want to thank them for that fine showing in the survey.
I noticed those red dots, most of them were in the outlying areas of the community, other than one right next door. But that was in the middle of a typhoon.
Linfield had a.
That was in the middle of a typhoon.
When I looked at it, I was surprised that some of them were so long. But then I guess when you get out to the western part of the state, there was just volunteer fire departments in a lot of square miles of the community, which obviously makes an impact.
Even some of these other communities, though, that
Well, yeah, but some of the closer in ones you think would be doing better.
Okay. All the new business? Joe?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Kelly. I would like to commend the DPW on the job that they did and their private contractors who work for the town. This was an exceptionally bad week, and considering the circumstances, I really feel that they did a yeoman's job, and probably are still working on it in some areas, but considering the task they have ahead of them, they did an excellent job. And I would also like to commend Dr. Troughton for his actions, for being in the right place at the right time with that unfortunate accident at the school, and his quick response, I'm sure is greatly appreciated by that gentleman and his family.
Bob?
Question regarding IT candidates. Did get any response?
Yes, we did. We had a very good one that we passed on to the committee to review.
In a meeting Wednesday night. And I've got Howard Sohn and talking to a couple of potential candidates for
Great.
STC. And the Council on Aging, we had a meeting with.
Yes, I've had a meeting with a couple of the members in the past few days regarding there are some positions that need to be filled, and we are.
And those could be
Yes, yes.
That's all I have.
Steve?
a couple of issues that have been brought up. Fire department report and the DPW's job during the recent storm review. Both departments are to be commended for their fire department over the diligence over the past year, and whatever the survey was done there, it was terrific. And again, DPW did do a great job, and I tell you, there is a noticeable difference driving from community to community, particularly the ones that are right around us. You know when you're in North Reading, and that's a good thing. They do a great job in treating the roads and keeping them clear. Just in relation to the action we took this evening, again, very unfortunate. I feel badly about it, but I also feel strongly about the action I took. In relation to that, we're going to have a vacancy to fill asking the board to waive policy as far as the advertising of 30 days because there was an issue of, quorums, and the Conservation Commission has a lot of business to transact. The chairman is on vacation right now. This creates another vacancy and create a problem in relation to quorums if someone else couldn't show up. So I may be asking the board to waive policy in relation to the 30-day appointment, and I'll be making a recommendation as liaison. And I'll let the members know individually what their recommendation will be prior to the next meeting, if there isn't any objection.
My understanding on that issue is that we're down at 3 members, so we barely have a quorum, and then we only have
Well, there's 4 members. There are 4 members, but one is on vacation.
Right, exactly, and for 2 months.
But
Yeah.
1 month at least is already done.
Okay, so 1 month, and we have Mr. Demichi, who's had to recuse himself on a couple of projects that are on the...
He's only had to do it once from the time.
No, I mean, isn't one